We need a quorum. Yeah, we're good now.
Yeah.
Okay, welcome back to our FinCom meeting of 27th of February. All right.
All right, I'm Les Godin, the building inspector. I'm the new guy. Nice to
Okay.
meet everybody.
Welcome.
Nice to work with everybody. I've been getting a lot of support from the different department heads and employees and board members, and it's good to be on board. To get started, I can start with some good news just for revenues. We bring in building permit fees. So far this year, we brought in $82,000 in permit fee revenue. That's year to date. Last year, fiscal year 15, was $79,000 for the whole year. So that puts us on a good course this year. Part of it's probably because of the winter weather. Buildings continued. Usually it slows down, like last year it stopped. But we've had buildings still.
Can't count on that, unfortunately.
Yeah, but we still have the next 4 months coming up are usually strong months. You know, either way.
But that's money that'll go into free cash, because I doubt if we anticipated that kind of revenue from,
Well, we budget for, we usually budget for the previous year's
Right.
amount.
right.
If it goes up, we increase our
Oh, you do?
estimates, yes.
Oh, yeah, we could do that then. All right, that sounds
But,
like,
and the building department is the only department in the town, with the exception of the enterprise funds, that actually pays its own way.
yeah. But that money goes into the general.
It goes to general fund,
There's no revolving funds, right?
not for them, no.
Okay, right.
Oh, well, yes, actually, there is.
Oh.
When we got the permitting software, we set up a
Okay.
revolving fund for that.
Okay, that's right.
So, yeah, so all
Because a
the
certain percentage, isn't it?
permit fees go, a percentage of the permit fees,
Percentage.
7.5%, go into the revolving fund. And we use that to pay for the software updates and,
Right.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
any type of, you know,
Maintenance or
printers,
something, or?
hardware, things like that. So that also is self-sustaining,
That's done on an annual basis?
yes.
How is that? Is it working? Is it
Yes.
working like it should? Is
Absolutely.
it covering
yeah.
what it
We-
should be?
Yeah, we
I don't
had some
remember
hiccups this
someone-
fall and actually run through
Yeah.
the winter. The original company that developed the software and installed it was bought out by a larger company.
Oh, yeah.
And they couldn't get their billing act together. They kept double billing us. We didn't pay double.
Right.
But,
So good at that.
so we had to teach them how to do their job. And we're still in that process.
Anyway. So it looks like the only increases in this particular
It's just
budget
salary.
is the salaries, and it's the standard 1.5%, right?
Actually, it's not.
Well, no,
No?
the plumbing, wasn't that
plumbing,
due
yes.
to?
Oh, I'm sorry, you're right, the plumbing. Yeah, but we have to do that. I mean, that's not a,
Right.
Yeah,
That's not-
I believe we do.
Yeah.
They work the same number of hours, they
yeah,
have
they
the
have to
same
be paid.
certifications.
Yes.
And one has been, we haven't, there's no parity there, so.
Yeah.
Right, right.
I got nothing.
I have nothing either. This is,
Sorry.
the only question I have, have we already, or will we reflect in our revenue, since we need revenue, the additional money we're getting from this?
We have not.
We have not, so, okay.
I haven't touched
You haven't
local
touched the revenues
yet.
line, yeah. Okay, so that's the next thing we have to do, is look at that.
Will we
Okay.
do it through what we actually have or what we're anticipating having for the year?
Anticipation.
Right, yeah.
Just curious. Thanks.
Okay, any other questions from anybody? I think you're good to go.
Second
I should
round.
complain no more. All right,
Thank
thank
you.
you. Thank you very much.
I don't think you realize he was here. No, but thank you. Sorry. for
Wheezy
the
on it
delay.
the first time.
That's right, I'll get it next year.
We'll do better next year.
Patty?
CBO 14.
13?
14.
I'm not using that.
It's all right. We got it, Joe.
Oh, God.
No, I wasn't talking about you.
I knew this next time.
Okay.
There's only 3 numbers on this paper.
It should be easy, right?
Till the next department
One is
comes.
I think
significantly
Patty has
larger than
some
the other.
introductions to
Okay.
make.
Hi, so I'm Patty Patari. I'm the Administrative Assistant for the Zoning Board of Appeals. It's my chairperson, Gina Tebow.
Hi.
And our newest member, Sean Dean.
Hi.
Sure. So, you have, these hours, I take it, are for you, Patty, huh? Increased
Yes.
hours?
So what, if you want me to just do a little bit, there's some people I don't recognize that I haven't
Would you
met
like
yet.
us to introduce ourselves again to you?
I just want to go around.
Why don't we go around the
Okay.
table again?
Hi.
Robin.
Robin O'Malley.
I'm John Anderson.
Nice to
Wayne
meet you.
Snow.
Yes, you
Hey, Wayne.
Jim Lacy.
Joe Bonavita.
Nice to meet you.
Adobe.
Nice to meet you.
Matt Newhall.
Nice to meet you. Okay, so just for the new, what we do is the zoning board is a quasi judicial board that operates under, state code chapter 40A, general laws of Mass, and the zoning bylaw chapter 165. So, and the purpose is to promote health, safety, convenience, and general welfare of the town. So we, with the building inspector, someone may come into the land use office, speak to the building inspector, and he will determine, oh, you can't do this because you need, to see the zoning board. Whether it be a setback or a use, someone wants to put a residential, retail use in a residential zone, something like that, he will issue a denial letter, that triggers a zoning hearing. So that's kind of how it operates in the office. Right now I have 18 hours and I'm struggling and have been for a while. It's been, the past couple of years, the hearings have been not so much, there are a couple more, but it's more the large,
They're involved.
they're very involved. We've had, just recently, 2 based on noise complaints for, industrial zone properties that are companies that are near residential homes. So we had one go on for 7 months. So the continuances is what takes up, so I can use our revolving account. The law under revolving account says that account can only be used for hearing hours only. So, right now in the tabs we gave you, I think as of December, we gave you a 5-year, apologize if you not shut that off. That's another board member. We gave you a 5-year history back to FY '12. So as of 12/1 of 15, I had used 88, besides the office hours, 88.25 revolving hours. So those are separate from office. I don't get accrual time for that. It doesn't count as regular office hours. So, as of the end of this week, I have used 133.5. And
Patty, you don't happen to have all of the updates for as of, was that 2/26? Do you have like the balance of fees or just the total hours?
I did a printout of, I have just what's been updated as far as the hours, you mean?
All right, so
Okay.
how many hours is it now as of 2/26?
She's got 133.
133.5.
So she's over.
So, and it's only February.
Yeah,
This is spread over six hearings?
6. Here he tells
Right.
6.
well, that's what it was, 88 hours over 6
So how many hearings is the 130 spread over?
So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, in the revolving, I can actually pass this out. that shows you. Yeah, let me give you a
Copies for
bunch.
everybody, or?
Yes. No, I'm good. This is just the most recent printout of the revolving hours, revolving spreadsheet. It shows the actual balance, and then there's a column to the right that says revolving hours and how many hours each payroll warrant that I use and the reason why I use them. And that might get cut off a little because it's hard to fit in that sheet. And on the second sheet, you'll see the total that I updated, 133.5 as of 2/25/16. So those are hours I use to attend the hearings,
Prepare.
do the minutes, things that I can't get done in the office. We're responsible for a butters list, unlike, like, say, conservation. People have to come in with green cards. They do their own mailings. I have to, do an abutters list with notices, envelopes and all that. I take that home and do it. That goes under revolving. Minutes go under revolving. Anything directly related to a hearing goes under revolving. So my problem is, in the office, the job is kind of morphed into, it's labeled zoning clerk. It's morphed into, when I started in 2001 in zoning, from answering phones, filing a decision when the board gives it to me, putting the legal ad in, to people come. We never had windows. When we redid the building, we got the windows. To making appointments with attorneys, sitting down with them, explaining the bylaw to people, having applicants come in for an appointment before they file their application because they get confused, and if they file the application and it's incorrect, it gets rejected and they have to start all over. So to avoid that and make the board's hearing go smoother, I sit down with them, make sure their application's complete. I spent an hour and a half with one person. That's the longest I've spent. And now it's getting more and more with attorneys. People are hiring attorneys, especially with the kind of hearings we've been having. So I'm just having a lot of trouble getting what I need to get done in the office. There's things that I'm not able to complete that due to the time constraints. There's a bylaw 16588, list of special permits and variances I'm supposed to give to the building inspector and selectmen. I haven't had time to do that since I've started it. I kind of just do the town report also, so I kind of use that as my, because that's per the bylaw, I'm supposed to do that.
Okay.
So right now I'm using the town report, which isn't really what
Oh, I see.
I should be doing.
Okay.
I need to create a list of accessory apartments. There's no time to get things organized, and there's piles of files and that need to go in storage, and
Okay, so this 4 hours is.
it would help me be in.
This is strictly 4 hours of like window time, if you want to call it that, in
Yeah,
town
and
hall.
people coming in, answering questions, and then doing my monthly budget update for the board, keeping up with the revolving account, the expense account, and things like that. It's,
All right,
There's a lot.
what we can do is we'll stick it in the pile, and see how we do. It's not a huge amount of money, but
and what takes up a lot of time in the office too, which I need to do, we have a new, online pictometry, which gives you the aerial views,
Right,
which
yeah.
helps the board with looking at the property without going out there. You can look at it from north, south, east. I do virtual, I put everything on the website, so I need to, I can do it to a certain extent. I haven't had time to put minutes up there lately, it's just been too crazy. But there's online training for that takes a half an hour out of a 2.5 day that I'm in there. And then my map is a new, I just talked to Merrimack Valley Planning, and there's a new I have to take that online training.
Right,
There's 3
yeah.
online training classes I need to take, I just don't have the time to do it.
Okay,
So if I'm in there another day for 4 hours, it would just help, and I just,
okay. No,
I have a question, not necessarily for the board. Of the hearings that you're having, besides the 2 noise complaint ones, what are the other, how many more of the other hearings are you having in a year?
I feel like we've been having a lot of hearings lately where there's 2 hearings a night, and some of it's been due to continuances of one, it's just tracked, but it used to be accessory apartments and, non-conforming structures.
So it-
Easy, 20-minute hearings. Now we're spending hearings and we're asking to extend the time past 10. We've been here for hours.
Are the accessory apartments and things like that, are they taking longer, or what's going on?
I just think there's more hearings in general.
More?
Yeah, the accessory apartments are the easy ones. I hate to say it, but they're usually the ones that we can get through pretty quickly. It's just they're not all accessory apartments anymore. They've gotten more involved with the noise complaints where we're
I understand the
actually,
noise complaint one.
Right.
But those are unique.
right, and who knows if we're gonna have another one.
You never
Yeah.
know.
Exactly.
it can change, and we can have nothing, and then the next day
You never know.
have a cell tower.
Right.
Yeah.
Like I just got a call on, when I got to my desk.
Okay. All right.
I mean, it can go, and it depends on the property, it depends on the hearing. You can have an accessory apartment that, okay, they're doing it within the structure, or it's gonna be an addition. That's gonna take longer. That's gonna be involved and maybe continued because they have to get, revise their plans. That's why I try and meet with them first, so I can avoid continuances. But we had a multifamily March 8th, for the huge house on 169 Central Street. It was a 3-family, it's going down to a 2-family, and the plans are extensive there. There were a lot. And
Yeah, hold, Gary had a question. Johnny.
Yeah, it might be Mike that can answer this. And I find it interesting that Mike said that the building department can pretty much sustain itself with what it takes in. Now, I'm going back to conservation, they have a revolving account, but it doesn't quite pay the salary. We have a revolving account, but who looks at the fee schedule? When have we raised fees? And I guess how can we help recover some of these expenses through the fee schedule?
So Patty actually did, and I'm sorry if I'm jumping in, Patty actually did a
surrounding towns.
surrounding towns to check fees just to see where we compared. And go ahead.
Yeah, and as far as special permits variances, it's kind of all over the place. West Newbury is less than us. We're $200 for residential, $250 for a conversion of a single to multi. Commercial $600, which is in line with the other towns, except Groveland. We charge $200. They charge $450 for a variance. It's a lot more.
I mean, have we increased them at all?
The only thing we've
recently?
increased in the last 5 years was the wireless for our cell tower, because those hearings go continue, because we hire an outside consultant to look at the data that their engineer would bring in, the coverage of, like we had T-Mobile for the cell antenna that's on the First Congregational Church, and that took a while. So that $200 fee didn't even cover one meeting.
But I guess the question was more to, I mean, thank you for that, but who makes the increase? Do the boards decide that, or does the Board of Selectmen
We've
authority
always
on that?
we've always done that.
ZBA is empowered by statute to set the rate fees.
And the conservation, I take it, is the same?
Yes.
So perhaps we should be having conversation
We've
with
been-
department heads and as a,
And we've been looking at that. It's just we haven't had time.
Well, I encourage all departments every year to look at their fees and do surrounding towns. We're, with the exception of some of the fees that the selectmen are responsible for, we do update them.
well, I mean, we raise salaries every year, expenses go up every year. but our fee schedule doesn't. And there could be a change of paperwork, you know, you don't wanna have to make out a whole new thing, but still, I think
I have a comment. Patty just explained very well, you know, the amount of time she's having to spend on these hearings. I really would just hope that the zoning board would be looking at a minimum of whatever hearing comes in, that she is covered on those costs. You're covering her costs. You know, she's not taking away from her normal daily responsibilities to handle these hearings, which it appears is what she's doing, and you're not getting the money to do it.
Well,
That, you know.
that's why she's covering almost everything that has to do with hearings through the revolving account.
But I think you need to cover it.
We
Every-
probably should raise the fees a little bit,
Yeah.
but when we look
Especially
at,
her time, where she's actually doing minutes and sitting with these people, they should be paying that.
Minutes are coming out of revolving.
I mean, when you're sitting down and preparing people for their
And
hearings,
they come into the office.
you come into your
so
office,
it's
they should be
getting-
paying your time.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. That's why, you know.
So that's a good point. Yeah, that does relate to the meetings.
Right,
I
exactly.
mean, we
Relating
could
to-
raise the $200, the normal residential fee.
You put an
to-
hourly charge on you and your $200 fee, something like that. I mean, this needs to be looked at.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna ask, I mean, you said residential fee and then there's a commercial and industrial. How kind of subcategorized can you get with that? Can you say, like you mentioned, an self-contained accessory apartment takes less time for you than an addition? You know, so could there be two separate charges, one for self-contained and then if you were building a separate structure?
So it's just listed as, it's not broken down like that, it's broken down, it's just residential, special permit of variance is 200. Then it's just conversion of a single to multifamily, 250, then commercial. It's not broken down, like, there's not like
Yeah.
a special fee for an accessory apartment.
But each one takes a
It's-
different amount of time for you, right? Or
Yeah,
potentially
and
could?
it depends, and sometimes you can't tell until you have their information of what this is gonna involve, and then something could happen at the hearing where, someone can't sit on it, or they're accused, and then you gotta continue it for that. It's very hard to tell, because things can change like that. But, we can certainly definitely I wanna look at the fees, because just $200 isn't covering anything,
Well,
but
then, yeah,
then,
we should look at the
you don't
fees.
wanna go to.
but I still don't think a $50, $100 increase is gonna cover her time. It's just not, you
Yeah.
know,
But
and-
that's not the answer to the question, though. You take any money where you can find it. It's hard to justify us robbing Peter to pay Paul unless you're gonna take care of your own affairs first.
we can look at the fees.
I
absolutely.
think you have to do something about the fees, not just tell us you're gonna look at the
Well,
fees.
we have looked at
Yeah.
them in the past, and
Then I
he's-
think that something should be done. I think that, you should come up with a plan. Obviously, this year you can't do anything about it, but I think on a go-forward basis, instead of talking about it, we do something about it.
we just always felt like our fees were right about it.
But, that's up to the
I guess I
market to
don't have to
decide.
say it.
And, $100 here, $100 there, isn't gonna change what somebody's gonna do.
And
Okay.
the only way I could see in the office is cutting down. If I don't meet with these people, if I just have thing is, if they just go file with the town clerk and I haven't reviewed the application, 9 out of 10 times, it's incorrect, it's not complete, and I have to reject it, and then that just,
You should get
And
paid
then
for what you do.
that-
There's no,
That's the point. Yeah, we're not
I'm
suggesting
telling you
that
how
you
to
don't
do
do
it.
it.
Yeah.
We're suggesting that the revenue and how it's charged should be looked at differently.
Another question, and it's on the fee schedule. One of the things you mentioned, Patty, that it's difficult, and it's tracking the, I'll call it the in-law apartments things. And I know that really those are temporary, and they go with the family, correct? If the family sells the house, the apartment doesn't really go with it.
it's null and void upon
And
sale.
so, as you said, tracking them is difficult. Now, could you impose a yearly fee every time you do one of them and say, and that would help to pay for some of the tracking of these things?
So we've taught, and this is something that we've considered a lot, like who keeps track of the accessory apartment, and how are we to know when someone passes and now they're renting it out to just a stranger?
Agreed.
And that's something that we, who is
Unenforceable.
the
You don't. Who's
jurisdiction
responsible
on
for
that?
that?
It certainly can't
We
be the
would,
zoning board.
I don't think there's any town
Unless you get a
Well, you
complaint.
may wanna
Unless
look
the
into it.
neighbors complain.
If the neighbors complain, then,
Yeah, then you'd find
That's
out.
how you
Right, but we
find
don't
out.
find out
I mean-
otherwise.
Okay.
or I had a gentleman come in and he was trying to refinance.
Even if they had to
So-
register every year, are you still using it?
Yeah.
Such just something to,
But then how do we pay for that person to keep track of that stuff?
with a fee.
That could be done with the census.
And I had a
can tell
going
the
tally
truth.
from 2001, when I left building and started zoning of accessory apartments. When we got a new computer in 2007 or 8, the document was on, either it didn't get backed up or something happened and IT can't find it. They can't recover it, so I lost that spreadsheet of all the accessory apartments. So I need to basically go downstairs and look I go by index cards so I can go through those. But that's our database, index cards going back to 1955. I also need to scan, go down there and pull all decisions, say from, 1954 to 2006, when we first got the scanner, the copy machine that actually could scan. Those decisions really need to be scanned and put in the computer, so I
Mike, do
can
we
just
have
pull
any-
them out.
Senior citizen work program that can help out with this?
And we also talked about like with the high
Possibly.
schools.
We do have them available. I don't
They,
know, what their
Right.
availability is this year, but it can be planned. I would think doesn't assessing have a database of the accessory apartments?
okay, so the problem with that, so if you go to the assessor's office and get a field card on a property. So Jay goes in and in the notes, he writes down what he visually sees. It doesn't mean they have a permit for it, because someone will come in, a realtor will come in and say, this is a multifamily, this is a 3-family, this is the next hearing we're actually having. This is a 3-family. I pull out I'm looking for index cards on it. The previous building inspector, John, we can't find any permits, nothing. So what's on that field card is what he sees when he goes into a home. Unless it says, and this is a section, unless it says ZBA special permit, there's no permits for that. So you can't really go by the field cards in the assessor's office because he's reporting what he sees. If he sees what looks like an in-law apartment to him, he'll put in-law apartment. And people are going by that. But then when they check with me, I'm like, illegal, not there.
What about
Never.
the cross-reference against census data?
Not everybody turns in, the only thing I know
Town
about
census
census stuff
data.
is it's to create the street listing. I
Yeah,
don't
but
have any,
when you fill out the census, you tell who's in the house.
right, but not everybody fills it out either.
No, yeah,
And that's
people
why I
don't.
sh-
That's- I
Right,
guess
but it's a
that's true.
start anyway.
Yeah.
Like our street listing is run by the census, so if you're trying to look up someone, if they didn't fill out the form, they're on.
You don't have it. Did Doug have a question?
No, I just.
You're just waving your arm in the air. Okay.
He's been so quiet. He wanted to
does
be
that a lot.
acknowledged. Yeah.
Okay, Patty, I think we have to move on.
So I
We're gonna
would
put it in
please,
there.
because I'm extremely extremely,
All right, we understand.
Jim, I'd like to add though,
Mike can help.
one of the problems is not so much the number of hearings,
Yeah.
it's the number of continuations.
Right.
Some of these hearings are being heard, 3, 4, 5, 6 times. So, unless they were to, in the initial application phase, say, you get $200, you get a hearing and 1 continuation, and then but then the problem is the continuations sometimes are on our part.
Oh, yeah, so you're still
Yeah.
not charging them for that.
Yeah.
Like if somebody's
yeah.
sick
It
and there's
depends,
only
like,
a
right in
board.
the
right.
moment what happens.
Okay, all right.
It's not,
It's
And I'm
not
by
an
m-
easy
And I'm by myself.
solution.
I'm the only one in the I'm like the only staff person there. I'm
No,
not
I
like
understand.
a 2-member
Okay.
department.
Yeah, there is no department head in zoning.
Right.
I just suggest, look at other ZBAs that are similar to ours in size and what you do. You did that
I've
thing,
done-
but what other creative things on top of just the fees that they're
Talk to
doing?
them.
Yeah, yeah.
And
And get some assistance if you
Yeah.
need some help.
And
I'm gonna
I've
give you
called
Mike.
other towns And I did this back in 2009. I did a compilation. I called surrounding town zoning clerks, who I know. They don't call them zoning clerks anymore. And not one of them was under 20 hours. It was 20 to 37 hours. Because they're one person in one department. It's...
But the question is still not about how many hours you work, it's how we pay for it. Nobody disputes that you've got to do the time, it's how it's paid for.
Yes.
Okay. So that's a different, you know, she's asking for the money in the budget, we gotta figure out the payment part. All right, Patty, thank you.
Thank you.
Guys, nice to
Thanks.
meet you. Thank you, sir. That was good.
All right,
Yeah.
should we do the fire department next?
Is anyone, assessors or planning? How are we gonna do planning?
There's nobody here, I know, we can't, well,
I'll update you,
There is no
not
planner.
today.
Right.
There's really just, I was looking forward, there's one change, and I'm not exactly sure what
What it
that
was. Yeah. I was just,
I would
I
like
know
to,
there is
after
one.
we, you know, I think we're gonna get through everybody, although we'll probably will break for
I
lunch.
think we go through lunch. and
Oh,
just do
you
it.
wanna go through to lunch?
Well, we took a long break, we may as
Yeah.
well push it a bit.
If you'd like.
I need to leave at 12 o'clock.
Right.
Oh, all right, let's, because I would like to have a discussion among us after we do all this, so. Okay,
Send me an email.
let's do the fire department.
Good morning. How
Jeff,
are
do
Morning.
you wanna come up?
Yeah.
Here, we have this chair, you can. Jeff, I have lots of
All right,
questions,
good.
you know that.
you? Yeah, I know.
It's a, you're gonna work
For
there. There
the
you
rest
go,
of the day?
thanks.
I guess.
For the rest of the day. All right, so if I'm going 12:30 to 1:30, you guys won't have a quorum.
Oh, well, somebody's coming back.
Somebody's so.
Oh, that's right, Ashley's coming back.
We don't
I
have,
wanted to make sure Jeff was up here, cause we had him.
All right, no, so that was it.
You got questions for Jeff? Oh, I shouldn't have sat down.
Good morning, I'm Fred Mitchell, the new fire chief.
Welcome.
Welcome, thank you, and thank you for having me this morning. We'll start with the fire department budget first. Okay. Basically, the budget for the most part presented from 16 into 17 with a couple of bump ups. One was the repairs and maintenance was bumped up $4,000 to $10,000. Tuition, which is contractual for 2 classes through Anna Maria. We did enter into an agreement with Anna Maria to save a little bit of money. What it is it's an agreement with them. They'll come in and, you know, give us a presentation to the membership and discuss what they offer. And it was a 20% reduction in the class fees. So, and, you know, okay. The other thing, everything else for the most part stayed the same. Vehicular supplies, the 36,000, that has to do with oils, fuel for the apparatus throughout the year. One thing we're gonna be doing is which is gonna hopefully help our maintenance budget a little bit, is we're gonna be doing our in-house preventive maintenance program. Instead of sending them for the oil changes and the grease that needs to be done once a year, we're gonna be buying the supplies, and Pete Durkee over at the highway surveyor has been gracious enough to allow us to bring the trucks over there to service them. So we got a couple of guys in-house that will service.
I can do that.
Yeah,
Okay.
so.
Nice.
And the other thing is under the salary and wages, right now, and we're in contract negotiations with the call firefighters, so we don't know
Right.
where that's gonna end up, so. And also, we have seen a little bit of an, increase in our total responses from 14 to 15. It was up by about 30 runs, from 1811 to 1837 total, calls for service for the residents.
Okay. I know that Robin had questions.
I have lots of questions.
Okay, go ahead,
This is my
Robin.
department. Too bad Sandy's not here for Pete, because, you know, she loves going after him. She's always on Pete. What is the Car 6 engine company coverage? It doubled.
Okay.
Is that the,
But that's the overnight. See, we staff the station from 6 a.m. in the morning
right,
till 9 p.m. at night.
yep,
Okay, and then what we did is from 9 PM at night till 6 AM, we had 2 people that were dedicated to respond back. They got a $50 stipend for being available, and when a call came in, they would go on their hourly rate. By increasing it to another member, that would have us 3 people guaranteed to come back. That allows us to put at least an engine company on the road, because after 9 o'clock at night, we tone out for an incident, we don't know.
Who's gonna come?
Right, and so NFPA standard for staffing of fire apparatus is 4, whether it be an engine company or the ladder truck. At least a lot of communities run 3. Where I came from, we ran 3 on a piece. So this is going to allow us to at least, first the engine gets on scene, they have a fire, at least they can deploy a line without one guy doing it.
Right.
We always try to work in teams of 2 minimum, and that's going to allow us to do that. So that's why you see the increase in that coverage, is so we can guarantee at least get an engine company on the road. In the future, we'd like to see that increased again, so we can handle a second medical call without half the toning out.
Is, you said you're going from 2 to 3 people?
Yes. And some
But it
that-
doubled.
Right, because it's 18,000 for one, if you do the $50 a night for 365 days.
So how are we paying for the first 2?
Right.
It comes out of the, one comes out of the fire department budget.
Oh, and one comes out of the ambulance budget.
So we're going to
That's what I was
increase,
gonna say.
that's
Thank
that's
you.
what we're gonna increase it.
Okay.
Is there any chance for, at least for this year, we could take 2 of them out of the ambulance budget?
I have a lot of questions on ambulance.
Okay.
Before we get to ambulance.
Keep going.
No, because under the enterprise account, money's expended out of the enterprise account can be used for ambulance only. So that's very, very restrictive under state statutes.
So we're kind of trying to split the cost between the 2.
On the fire department budget, my question is, okay, I guess that's really under, you've identified part of what comes out of the ambulance fund. What other labor comes out of the ambulance fund?
Well, part of the chief's salary does, doesn't it?
Half the chief's salary.
Half the chief's salary. The ambulance is right next to it.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's electronically, anyway, the ambulance is right next to it. And there's one firefighter,
Yeah,
as part of the ambulance budget.
yeah, because the labor cost is kind of split between the 2.
Right.
Because when the guys come in during the daytime, a couple are assigned to the ambulance and then a couple are assigned to fire apparatus, even though depending what call comes in is what we're
So-
taking.
Their total salaries, this one plus this, right?
Yeah, that's
Ambulance
everybody.
and fire together.
Have you realized any
Biggest question.
real fuel savings that you could project out
Yeah, no, I don't know.
in terms of the diesel?
Yeah, and I mean, we all know fuel prices have gone down, so it's probably gonna,
Literally by 1/3
Yeah.
at least.
yeah. So,
Is that reflected in here?
no, I think we level funded the fuel cost, because that's one of the things where it falls under the vehicular supplies, which, fuel, oils, greases, and if we ever have a major breakdown, that $10,000 that we're
Yeah, it won't
proposing.
go very far.
No, exactly, so that's why we
Right.
kind of keep it like, and with
So
it,
that really isn't significant.
right.
Okay.
You got one more question?
I have a lot of ambulance questions.
Okay, go
What,
ahead.
Oh, no, we'll wait till are we done the?
We should do the fight first and then.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
why are the repairs and maintenance up so significantly?
It's just, we increased it, well, last year, there was a warrant article for engine 5, for some major repairs.
Right.
We ended up over-expending that, so some of that had to come out of the budget. There was additional repairs that needed to be done. And before I started, that was already taking place, so when I came on board, we were finishing it up. So there were repairs that had to be made that weren't really budgeted for. It was a breakdown.
And
It
do you
was
expect more of those for this coming year as well?
Yeah, because engine 5 is a 1999 pumper, engine one is a 2005 pumper. As they get older, it's any vehicle, there's more potential for breakdown.
I see, it seems like in both the ambulance and fire, their repairs and maintenance take a big jump and then they go back to, it looks like they're now back to a lower level. It just seems like there's a big jump in 17 in both of those.
Yeah, it just for preventive maintenance, like I said, one major breakdown is the repair budget's gonna be shot. And we're gonna run into a problem with it.
Yeah, with the age of engine five,
Five.
it's continuous. Engine one has had pump issues since the day it was delivered. Again, ongoing. The valves have been replaced 3 times?
I believe so.
Are those, the replacements, do you have a plan to replace this equipment?
Yes, and that was the other thing before we go to the ambulance side of the fire department to you know, kind of just put on the radar. I had a brief discussion with Mike about it, and $77,000 is for the ladder truck payment. That's going to be paid off this coming year. We're going to be looking at.
Reggie would be.
Yeah.
Reggie's so happy.
We're going to be submitted our capital improvement plan, and we're proposing to replace engine 5 next year. So what we'd like to do, kind of similar or mirror or similar what the police department does with the replacement program of apparatus, and something that we would like to try to build into the budget, future budgets. The other thing that I keep in the back of my mind is the Erie Engine 4, which is part of our operation, but it's not a town-owned vehicle. When the new president is elected, I've already asked to sit down with that person to discuss their plans, for the replacement of Engine 4, because it's a 20-year-old pumper, and it was bought used, from what I understand. So, I'd be remiss to me not to put it on the radar. I would hate to have to come and sit in front, because ISO, the Insurance Service Organization, which gives us our rating, to say, we need to replace this truck. And now the town has to. Right, I would rather put that on the radar and just something to think about, something to look at, and, by reaching out to the Erie folks. I've met the organization. Right now, they have an acting president. So I want to wait until they get their elected a president and sit down and discuss the future plans for.
With the age of the equipment, you could have a catastrophic breakdown at any time.
Right. Absolutely.
We have $50,000 a bond. Was it for land use? Remember when we were looking at the bond spreadsheet? There was a $50,000 bond that's going to stop either after 17 or after 18.
I think it was 17, Jim.
Yeah, and I think that we were sort of thinking that would be the money that we would pay for Engine 5, right?
We plan on presenting, obviously, the old saying, it's, what you would like and what you need. And we're going to be looking at a pumper that we need, and also present different financial option plans to the town to, and try looking at doing it in most cost-effective way.
What do they
Can
cost?
I-
Just curious.
Anywhere.
$500 million?
What, for a pumper?
Yeah.
You're probably looking anywhere between $350 on the low side to maybe, the last pumper I was involved in, to spec where I came from, was $592,000.
Okay, so 4 or 5. is-
BJ just spent almost over $650,000, the city did,
Right.
for a pumper down there.
So, but again, it's what you,
Uber just got a
it's
hell
what
of a
you
deal
want,
then.
and
Yeah,
that's-
no, I understand. I'm just
So-
Well,
trying
that's just it. I
to
mean,
Yep,
you
no,
can-
I-
get a sense of where it was. So
Just
500 is.
just on a side note, if is ISO, right? If they
Yes.
downgrade us, that means our house insurance.
Everybody's
goes up.
house
Yeah.
insurance goes
Well,
up. I
and
knew
not-
that.
I don't think people
No,
realize
right,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
that can happen.
Right.
And not only
So
that,
it's a,
but
you're going to get hit one way or another.
it's the business also get hit as well,
Right.
more
Yeah.
so than the homeowner.
Right, but
So,
there's still
right.
the possibility
absolutely.
that it can go up, so.
And they just came in back in 14, so they just came through town,
Yeah.
so, and did the review of the rates.
Right.
If you plan and build a truck correctly, you can do it very efficiently and very responsibly from a fiscal standpoint.
Or you can keep your eye open for a deal, if you know you've got something planned.
Yeah, those are called demos that are coming down the lines that they haven't quite finished yet. That another municipality doesn't take that
Right.
delivery. If you time it just right, you can get in at or below the cost that you're aiming for, which is what we did with the ladder truck back in 2006 and 7. That was a $690-some-odd-thousand truck we got for $625. Timing and just negotiation with the dealer at the time.
But planning's the key.
Right, and that's, we're on schedule to replace engine 5 next year. And then when you kind of figure you've got the 05 E1, if you go out, for the sake of discussion, 7 years, then you're gonna be in line to replace engine 1.
Right.
Right.
And that's just.
You've
staying-
gotta do that.
Right,
Yeah.
with the cost factor, and that's, the unknown of, engine 4. So that's.
As the chief said, from a planning perspective, we've already started to look at it in the background, to try to look at, researching the costs and what's available, things like that. So that's something I'm doing in the background, knowing what we're going from a planning standpoint, from that part.
Everybody's good with fire department? Looks
Well, the
like-
fire, but not the ambulance.
Yeah, you're gonna go to ambulance. Yeah.
Go easy on me.
I don't work there anymore. I don't work there anymore. I can ask all I want now.
Uh-oh, that's right.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Oh, you have no idea.
I used to work for the people that do your billing.
Okay.
I don't work there anymore.
Okay.
So we're fair game now.
So now,
Oh, boy.
Fresh meat.
Go easy, I'm the new guy. Don't beat me up too much.
one of the things that we had discussed as a FinCom when we originally started the ambulance was making sure that it was self-sustainable. Because multiple members were, we'll get rid of the ambulance if it's not. Do we have any revenue numbers, Mike? On how they're doing, what their collection rates are?
Not with us today.
Because you're certainly not getting 100%, because I know
Oh, no.
that.
78, we're lucky.
That's not good.
That's one of the reasons.
That's not
We've
good.
met with Comstar, is we're not happy with their collection rates.
No, in a
Uh,
town
it's,
like this, it should be
No,
definitely more than that, yeah.
At the same time, too, to give you some background, in the last 2 years, 14 and 15 alone, we've averaged 38 calls or 38 transports per month, so it's anywhere between 440 and 480 transports. And it's a 60-30 split. 60% of the transports, believe it or not, are elderly.
Yep.
Medicare, Medicaid. So those fees are drastically reduced, and
Except my medical.
and actually starting in January of 2016, they've gone down approximately 3.5%. So
They
we
went
haven't-
down?
Yes.
Wow.
So, again, the
That
60-30
was coming.
split based
You could
on that,
feel
you
that
could see it coming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So one of the things we've worked on is try to take a look at that, and again, going back to the collection rate not being acceptable, where the chief has been discussing a possible,
Yeah,
look
looking-
around that.
looking
Yeah.
around.
That's an issue.
Right.
That is, that's
Without
that's
question.
really low for a town like Georgetown.
And just the recent issues that we've had, not only with Georgetown, but also the recent issues that Newbury has had with Comstar is kind of put up a red flag, cause for concern. And with the collection rates, you're right, they should be higher. And there's no reason why the ambulance can't sustain itself and be have a positive impact on the community as a whole.
How are we looking for this year?
Off the top of my head,
53,000.
In the hole or over?
No, it's always been in the black.
Okay.
When we did the replacement project of both of the ambulances last year, I think revenues at the time, Mike, were 26,000-ish.
Yes.
Those were about 78,000 apiece to remount. So we basically took the
Right.
existing box, put it on a brand-new cab and chassis. They're both 2015 Fords. So that came out of that money, so it put us down to, 160 minus that, so we were about 60 grand at that point, still in the black. So we start to rebuild that enterprise account. I want to say the last time I looked, it was because I've been traveling for my regular work, so I missed a month. 117 rings a
Yeah.
bell, but don't hold me to it. I'd have to go.
it's over $100,000.
It's been self-sustaining
Yeah.
since we
Excellent.
started.
From day
Well, I don't
one.
think we've ever asked that question.
So David has.
Every
I think we
Selectmen
did
are all
actually.
over it.
Every month.
Oh,
I told him,
absolutely.
We get a, just so you know,
Yeah.
the chief provides a report on ambulance revenues in the balance sheet.
Well, the idea
every
is for
month.
them to be able to sustain the
Right,
equipment.
yeah, we
Get
don't
them
say
right.
it.
We don't want
It has
to.
been successful.
And then, and then in the
Because I know that's a
future
town's question.
is to look to grow that service and, you know, provide additional services that we currently don't have. It's 4 years old, it's still, and it's kind of
Right.
early stages of growth, but when we hit that 10-year mark and we can look back on and start really breaking down what calls we're doing, you know, are we doing more BLS calls, are we starting to do more ALS calls? Would it be more cost effective to provide ALS services instead of contracting out those services? So those are the things that we're gonna start monitoring and, you know, look to present down the road, those steps to implement that.
ALS is advanced life
Advanced life
Advanced
support.
life
Yeah.
support, yeah.
Basic
give you
life
drugs.
support.
Yeah,
They can give you drugs, is that the difference?
And you can,
drugs.
and you
Right.
can charge a lot more.
right.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Yeah. But it's more expensive, but people have to be certified all
Right,
the time, don't they?
exactly.
Right,
And the
right.
equipment's more expensive. David?
Right now, anytime they have an ALS call, there's an intercept,
Byfield, right?
and we pay $250 to the other
To Byfield.
company.
Yeah,
To do it.
yeah, we have contracts with them.
Atlantic
Keep in
Ambulance.
mind, the ambulance service is in the black. We're replacing the equipment with those funds,
Right.
and we're absorbing
Right.
half the chief's salary.
Oh, yeah,
What
yeah.
we want to
And
do.
we-
Good.
and we
We're not
have-
complaining.
Right.
It's
We're
a
just
good
making-
thing.
We're making
And we
sure,
also
I think, it's
are
where
able
we
to
are.
And yeah,
provide
Jeff is
additional
right,
costs.
we all,
No, seriously, we talk often.
we talk a lot and make sure that
Right.
things are moving along. We get, like Bill said, we get that over to
So, and the other thing about the ambulance budget, we're able to, you know, provide staffing for it. That comes out of that.
I
That
do
doesn't
have one
affect.
specific question though, Mr. Chairman, if that's allowed.
Certainly.
So why are we boosting the repair and maintenance if we got two brand new chassis with two boxes?
They
Right.
both basically, you go through the engine,
Yep.
rear end differential, transmissions, fluids, you name it, they basically swap wires out.
We went from 1,500 to $7,000.
It's about $2,500 a truck,
Is it?
roughly.
So how do we get away with the other 15? Because we turn those in, we'd have to maintenance them? Okay.
That's why you saw the low, they're both brand new.
Right, it was buried in the actual.
And what's the energy? It's 8,000.
Yeah, it's energy.
Energy has to do with, but it's kind of some of the cost of the building. And no, I'm sorry, no,
There was a lot of like category changes, I think,
Yeah.
Mike.
Because of the munis piece versus how we classify, that's most likely the fuel.
Yeah, it was the
That's
off-
the fuel
yeah.
number, chief.
yeah, okay, because I've got it here as off.
So
it's-
you're taking $8,000 in fuel for the ambulance, and,
It gets 6 miles
Miles
a
a
gallon.
gallon.
yeah, I'm
Yeah.
not questioning what
Your
the
V10s, they're
8,000.
off.
Yeah,
For a
if you
Ford,
look at
Ford
the
V10 is
total,
not
it's
good.
only gone up 4,700. Because there, it looks like they did a lot of reclassification. Am
Yeah.
I correct on that, Mike?
Yeah.
There was a lot, like there was
They don't have
11,000.
any energy in the fire department.
It'd be
gas.
electric.
It's fuel. It's fuel. It's the
Yeah.
fuel.
they
Because of the
don't-
munis
This is
system
the-
is different than how we run our internal spreadsheets. That's why we had to classify it and kind of.
I'm accustomed to
Tended to
seeing a
fix it.
budget that says fuel,
what
oils,
he's
and
asking
lubricants.
is
I'm
how come
looking
it's
at the same
not?
thing.
Fire
I mean,
department.
when you
what are you
Not
running those fire
ambulance.
trucks on if you're running, call it energy?
When I
and
think, I think of energy, I think of
Right.
heat,
Where'd it
fuel,
go?
gas, like for the building, not,
Under
not with
supplies?
But again, but they're paying for it themselves out of their own.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
understand that.
We're just curious.
But there's
No,
no,
Is it under the vehicular supplies
Yeah.
in
What is
fire?
What?
the fuel.
Because what he's asking is, how come there's no fuel on the fire department's budget where there is on the ambulance budget?
No, that's on the vehicular
Okay,
supplies.
so that's what
Yeah.
it is.
Someone
yeah.
moving around
I
there
have-
last
I have
minute that had to
one
get
other
done.
quick
Yeah.
Sure.
question out of
Because you could see
curiosity.
there's like
Yeah.
I noticed as you
all
go out
this
to
negative.
2019, you're down to the
Yeah,
cents.
it's-
Is that because you're just arbitrarily assigning an inflation number to the budget?
Yeah, I think we just bumped it up a percentage.
Yeah,
trying
it
to
is.
base-
It's up by 3%.
Yeah, that's,
they didn't press the round button.
Yeah, yeah. No, they just dragged and dropped the formula. Wait, you know, but the other thing is, on the other purchase services, the 79,000 up from 3.
that's the ALS intercept fees and also uncollected fees that we have to look at the number to
What are you looking
absorb
at?
into the to the budget.
5360, other purchase services, it went from 3,000 to 79,000.
Right.
Oh, yeah?
We don't have that.
We don't have that.
No, I don't have it either.
Really? I got
We
it.
don't have those printouts. What are you looking at?
I'm looking at
I
the
know, that's the
electronic
one we
version
adjusted.
that I have, that I sent you guys, by the way.
Yeah, but I wasn't printing all that out. I figured I had it all.
I'm gonna say, there's
But there-
79,000 bucks in there that I have.
But those
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 copies.
fees,
Yeah.
those are the ALS intercept fees, the $250 flat rate.
And that's what that is, that 79,000? But where was
It's a
it
hell of a lot of
last year?
intercepts.
A lot of sick people. Again, it's all based on the criteria of the state under EMS, or the Emergency Medical Services. If someone has chest pains, you know, we run what they call a basic service or BLS service. So we're dispatched initially, and depending on the chief complaint, if it's a chest pain call, it's automatic that an advanced unit would be called. We can cancel them, but they'll come anyways.
Yeah.
So it's
So,
based
yeah,
on
but
certain
sometimes
criteria.
It's paid twice.
What
It's
happens
even
in
where
that
you
ca-
could do a BLS and an ALS. with
What
the
we
same-
do, in that case, if we have an intercept with Byfield or Atlantic Ambulance on the weekends, what happens is the truck then becomes an ALS unit because we're staffed with paramedics. So we will bill out at the paramedic rate. We give the $250 flat fee, was the agreement we have with the two other services for advanced life support on the week.
Is it based on what you know now, would it be a good investment to just go straight ALS?
It's a lot of money.
No, basically, it's a 60-30 split. I'll tell you exactly.
And to
In
follow,
2013, or excuse me, 2015, 67% of our transports in 2015, calendar now, were what they call BLS transports, and 33% were ALS, or advanced life support, out of the 442 calls.
Well, if you listen to Council on Aging, the ALS is probably gonna go up.
well,
Well, there was 147 calls out of that 442 that were, quote, ALS calls.
and the other thing too is the upgrading equipment, the additional equipment you're gonna have to buy, training
Plus
for the
training.
person, yeah, I mean,
Certifying, I
right.
understand the
And that's why,
certification is much
right,
stronger.
exactly, and that's why I say is as we move forward in time, we'll be evaluating those numbers constantly, so if it warrants to go that, if it's not cost effective anymore with the ALS intercept rates, then we wanna start planning to go that route based on, you know, getting people trained, that's gonna cost money, and then buying the additional equipment, the cardiac monitor, and also bringing the state in to inspect the truck, and anything above that that needs to be put
Right,
on
but
that
as
truck.
you move forward, it's self-sustaining
Right,
anyway.
absolutely.
Would you have to pay more for the paramedic than you would for the EMT?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you're talking.
You know, again,
So you're
what-
talking salary.
where was that money, that ALS money last year? Because that line item went from 3,000 to 79,000.
It's how things got classified to get it into.
Yeah, but you're
this-
still up. No, you know,
It was,
and I
uh,
understand that this, you
It
guys
was
covered this.
37,000 last year, I believe.
Was it? Because you guys went from,
There's other things in that 70.
102 to 183
Mhm.
in the service, in this, purchase of services section. So there's something new in there.
You know,
I can look at that
That's-
79,
look at it.
because that's a combination of 7 other line items that we use. I'll have to go back and look at my
Okay.
other
All right.
notes, but I can get back to you on that.
I have
He has a question.
It's not a,
Okay. It's gonna,
the, where this is an enterprise fund, and I know that the requirements, there's accounting procedures for doing this, and you, at the end of the year, because I ran an enterprise fund for year, you have to do an annual report
Yeah.
at the end. And I don't know if you give this to the selectmen, I think it would be nice, you know, if we got a report
Absolutely.
of that
Not a
from the
problem.
previous year,
Yep.
so that we could have something, because a lot of this stuff, I'm kind of like, you know, fuel was, well, guessing at the, what exactly, where
you're
the
looking-
money come in, money went out, what is
What it
charged?
does-
Charge.
Is it,
Yeah.
you know,
We can
I
run-
understand it's making money and you're in the black, that's
right.
great. But to sitting here and try to figure out from this piece of paper what you're doing is
That's a really good thing for the town to know,
And it's something the town should know,
Absolutely.
you know.
No
that
problem.
we actually have a sustainable,
right.
Absolutely. It's all
Powers and
tracked.
Sullivan takes a look at all that too. so.
Yeah, I'm sure.
You know, I had an auditor that looked at mine too, and it was a complete report that if somebody wanted it, I could click on a button and say, here it is.
So when Powers and Sullivan comes in and does the review, they look at those funds.
Mhm.
So all those numbers. are
Everything
there.
goes through.
Yeah. But
Yeah,
we
well-
don't, we've never seen anything like that.
We can provide a report for you, we can break it all down, so, so it'd be, you get fiscal year 16. You know, at the end of the year,
Something to
so,
start with.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
I'm done.
Thank you, Wayne.
Is that it? Is everybody done? Robin?
Yeah.
Are you done?
I am.
Good. I think we're good.
Okay, well, thank you very much for your time, and one thing, being fairly new in town, is if anybody would like to reach out to me to sit down and talk about the fire department going forward, please contact me. I'd be more than happy to sit with the group as a whole, or individually over coffee, or at the fire station in the office to discuss, you know, my thoughts, because we're gonna be working, start putting together our strategic plan going forward.
Well, you know, at some point, it would be
Yeah.
nice maybe to come to a meeting.
Absolutely.
And talk
You
to us
know,
about that.
if you, that is my goal, once we get it done is, but in the meantime, if anybody wants to sit down and talk, I'll make myself available.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah,
Thank you
I'd
very
like
much.
to, I'd like to add, initiative that started, just before, Chief Mitchell got here and has just been culminated, or will be culminated on Monday.
Very good.
They actually went through and we're getting rid of an expensive piece of apparatus. We have a rescue truck that has
right.
kind of been made obsolete since we started the ambulances.
Yeah.
So we've estimated, we got a price of $100,000.
Ooh.
And the chief has put together a swap with the city of Haverhill. We're giving them the rescue truck and getting $100,000 worth of brand-new equipment.
Wow, nice.
So the equipment that we're looking at is protective clothing for the whole
Yeah.
department, which is we won't have to worry about that for 5 years down the road. Part of our capital improvement 5-year plan that was submitted was for a gear extractor and dryer. We'll be able to take that off the books because we're gonna purchase that. And the other one was hose, which will be able to reduce that number because the money that's left over from those two items is going to be used for hose, which that's really neat.
Great idea, yeah.
Well done.
Yep.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, that's
Yep.
fabulous.
Wonderful.
So,
Okay,
Not often you
thanks
see-
again.
Not often you see.
No, I know.
It going
Not
that
often
way.
you see good stuff.
Wayne, thank you, that
What's
was
that?
important.
Said we should have opened with you.
Yeah.
I did. We wanted to.
Always good news.
Yeah.
All right. Awesome.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
How do we do the chief?
Jim, the reason I think we should move forward, because these guys have been waiting here a long time.
Yeah, okay, all right.
No one ever sees
Why don't you come up? You wanted me to do the highway. He likes, Peter, come on.
He's short of stature wise, but he's probably got. But he can take me though. So he may be shorter for you to accomplish your goal.
He likes to be last and
I know he does. He likes to spy on everybody else.
Hey!
see where he can get some money in.
joining, I'm gonna win.
Yeah,
Press, get him back.
because he's here.
He's here.
Oh, yeah, you can leave.
I can leave.
Okay.
Even when Ashley has to go, we'll still have,
Peter's just gonna tell me everything
that you know?
that I don't wanna know anyhow.
Oh,
Peter, you,
I'm back.
I know, that's awesome.
Yes, I know.
Joe's leaving.
Nice job on the roads as always.
All right.
Thank
You've
you.
been,
yes.
spoken highly of by multiple departments.
Uh-oh.
I said spoken
But not
highly
everybody.
of.
Yeah.
Multiple departments have, their great job by the highway department.
They say that every year.
Just letting them know that there's been multiple, Peter's helping us out
But we
again.
try to help out other departments to cut costs and, and
Doing
don't worry,
awesome.
they help us out too, so,
Yeah.
Well, you use common sense, which is the key.
yeah. Good morning, my name is Peter Durkee. I'm the highway surveyor in town. I'm in charge of the highway department.
Do you know everybody?
John Anderson.
And Pat Newhall. Nice to meet you.
Okay. Why don't you trot through here and then,
We'll skip over the wages part right now.
okay. That's fine.
This is we'll start with energy. And energy is what I pay for streetlights and the traffic lights. And there's
You've
been,
got those now?
Oh, that's right. I knew
anybody
had to
that
go
wants
so-
them can have them.
Sorry.
You know, we've had some issues with this the last 3 years. This year,
Went up so much.
it was underfunded. It should have been 46,580 for streetlights,
Yeah.
and it was only funded 36,650.
This
So
is
what-
in
this is this
15?
year.
Yeah.
So we're gonna have to
16.
come, you know, in front and ask for that difference in money, which is $9,930.16. I have enough money to pay till March.
Okay, so but you're gonna put, that's in, the higher amounts in here.
Yeah.
Yes.
It is.
Yep. So,
Wow, I didn't know that's what those.
and I talked to Dave, I emailed Dave, I have an email here, and he projects that the amount next year will be $41,150. No, I'm sorry, that's wrong. It will be 51,090. That includes the streetlights, which is 46,590, and the traffic lights, which is $4,500.
We have a little bit higher number.
Yeah, I think, yeah, I'm looking at my email right now, just to make sure. I think I do have that wrong. 46, nope, they amended it. I got the email. It started out as 49,448.
That's what we have budgeted.
And then I got an email dated January 12th, and they amended it. It was 46,590. So that is the new amount.
The total I have is 53,948.
Yeah, that's gonna
Yeah.
be too high.
So it's now 51,090.
Oh,
51.
090. All right then.
So there's the original email, and then he sent me another email.
2,900.
5210.
Oh, this one, okay, I thought you were looking
Yep.
at D2.
No, no.
That's just for streetlights. The traffic lights,
$2,000. That was three.
as far as I know, is still the same. You know, it's $4,500, and that includes repairs to the street traffic lights too.
Okay.
So streetlights is basically just to pay for turning the streetlights
Electricity.
on. Yep.
And what about repairing them? or-
They take care of that. They change the bulbs.
They changed the bulb,
yeah.
that's right, yeah.
What are they right now? They're not LED, correct? They're just
Not all of them. There are some. There's 1,000 streetlights, and I'm not sure how many are LED. And I know they looked into how much it would cost to change them all to LED to have a lower cost for the town. But it would probably take, you know, I don't know how many years. That would be something you'd have to ask the light department to how, you know, to change them all to LED. So
left. When he snuck out.
That's why he snuck out.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yes,
yeah.
it is.
Yeah. Okay.
you know, basically, that's the only thing that's changed on the budget side of, you know, the highway department budget.
Exactly. That's it.
There are some things in here, let me see. Yes, that, you know, that's the only change toward the highway department budget.
Yeah.
Do you have any questions about any of the columns?
No.
The, other supplies, the $4,600 for the other supplies, that is the clothing allowance that they get. And then if we look at payroll, I know that their contract's almost close to being signed, and I believe they got a 1.5% raise, and I didn't put any raises in here. I would like to talk about giving a raise to the administrative assistant.
Mike, there's a 1.5 built in.
We have
we have a 1.5
You have the
built
1.5 built
Yeah.
in, okay.
Yeah, everybody's
So,
across the board, yeah.
and that includes the administrative assistant?
Yes. You know, like I looked at a job posting just the other day, and the job posting was for, where is it? To hire a new person you know, an administrative assistant for $17 an hour. Jan's worked for the highway department, and I had these oh, here it is.
Oh, I don't think they have to convince us.
No.
Yeah.
Jan's worked for the highway department for 17 years. And, you know, is it 17?
It's long enough.
Yeah,
it's
we know, it's a long
17 years.
time.
So she's been here and she makes 18,
Oh, we
So
have
we
an,
don't have to.
yeah. So what I would like to do is give her an increase within my budget. You know, if I don't have to hire a summer help, and it wouldn't be the whole, you know, I was thinking, you know, to the amount of, you know, in the $22 range. You know, she only works 14 and a half hours, it'd be an increase of, I
Oh,
had
so you
those-
want to bump it up more than Mike did?
Yes.
It probably costs more to replace her.
yeah,
And I just, you know, one thing that's, you know, within the budget, and I'd like to talk to at another date, is, for instance, I have a new hire, and the new hire is gonna be moving up to equipment operator 1, and I put that on my budget, and that will happen, you know, July 1st, he'll have his hydraulics license by then. And currently, I have a person that's gonna be, you know, he's out of work right now, and I don't know if he'll be able to come back to work. So he had a heart attack and a stroke 3 weeks ago. So I don't know if he'll be able to come back to work. So I want to move this person July 1st to
Into
equipment
that.
operator, so I don't lose anything there. I'm going to work on hiring some part-time help for now to get us through till July. And I'm not doing anything until I find out more, you know, what his condition will be.
situation is, yeah.
So, but it's not fair to the people that are already equipment operators that have been here for over 10 years that a new person comes in and makes the same rate. We should have a scale of, you know, maybe you come in and you start at this lower rate and you work your way up to this higher rate. And it's just not fair to me that I think that a new person comes in and makes the same amount as somebody
It's
that's
not
been
in the
working here for
contract,
years.
though?
No, they have a contracted price, and that's what they get paid. It's not between here and here. And I don't think it's that hard to do, and maybe next time we negotiate, that's what we try to do.
Would it be based on longevity?
Yes.
Is that why you put did you put a longevity line in there for?
Well, the longevity it's under contract.
It's
They
in their
get paid.
contract.
Yeah.
You know, some get 500, some get 600, and that's in there.
That's what there's for.
So, you know,
Okay.
I figured out for the next 5 years what each person gets. So, you know, there's different things in there for licenses too. You know, we pay for their hydraulics license, their CDL license. We pay for their medical cards. And now we have to pay for their continuing education for their training.
Did you budget that
That,
somewhere?
yes.
You know, if I could jump in here, everything Peter's saying is accurate, but it's a town-wide problem.
Oh, right.
Yeah, it
It's
is.
not just
just
the
this
highway
department.
department. Every department here can come and make a pitch and be totally legitimate
Yeah.
that our pay scales are so far behind
Right.
reality. And yes, what happened, you know, we do it one at a time. When somebody leaves,
bring it up.
then we have to get somebody in there, we have to increase
Right,
where
right,
we
right.
would have if we increased it, the person would have
Would've
stayed.
left. Right.
And I've updated we haven't had an official classification pay system since 2003. All we've done is, and some years we have, and some years we haven't, raised, you know, the wages by a flat amount. We don't have a step, you know,
schools.
step plan.
Yeah, like that's right, the
We
school.
don't,
That only affects non-union people.
No, you know,
It affects
it could
union people,
affect
so
you.
that's
well,
what
it would have to be negotiated with the unions,
Right.
but.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's you have to do that piecemeal anyway.
Right.
Well,
No, you would do it all at the same time.
Yeah, yeah.
You can't do a piecemeal, because then everybody's out of whack. And I've got the data. But to institute it,
Right.
it would cost well over $100,000 to
here's,
get everybody
Right.
to market rates.
but you know, we're talking about looking at long-term planning this year. And to look at the following year's budget. We should be putting all of that stuff in there. Not only look at revenues, but look at expenses like that.
Yeah.
You know, is this the kind of thing we should be doing if you want to retain people? I mean, we should be doing a comprehensive plan of where we want to be. I mean, that's sort of part of what Phil is doing, you know, I would think.
We are, as a matter of fact, we're trying to, and Mike knows this, and speaking with Carol, we're looking at bringing in a third party to help us do that.
Yeah.
One, I want to take some bias out of it, because I think we all have our own
Right.
predispositions to that, but Mike is working with a contact that he knows from Carol to see if they can help augment some of that.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, I mean, that's kind of what I think we should go with that.
So I don't know if you have on your budget for that, person as a truck driver to be moved as an equipment operator.
What do you have for total salaries, Peter?
For 17, well, I don't have any increases. I don't have the 1.5% increase.
Peter, this is what they have.
368, 454 is what I have.
That's a, yeah.
Yeah, so the truck driver would move from truck driver to the 46,143 as the equipment operator one.
Okay.
So it's another 4.
Yes.
Mike, would your concerns about not doing it piecemeal, if we did it for the highway department, would that have an adverse effect on all the other departments?
Oh, I think so.
Yeah.
Yes, plus they're unionized, so we'd have to reopen the contract.
So.
Well, she's non-union. That's
She's not.
But no, but we were talking about the other thing
other
about.
guys.
The other guys, we're talking about the other guys in terms of getting step increases and what have you, based on longevity. And as you said, it doesn't make any sense to do it piecemeal, because then you'd have agitation from another town
Yeah.
department.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
plus, FY '17 is the end of this current round of negotiations. Starting July, we'll be going into negotiations, so that would be
With
the,
how many unions?
3 of them. The police,
I'm talking just town side.
yeah,
Yeah.
three townside unions.
And how many are there?
3.
All right, so it's
We
all of them.
we have them all on the same
Okay.
schedule.
Do you think that if we did this, it would just be the unions being double dipping, that get the step increase, plus they'd get their normal,
I wasn't talking about a step increase. I was just talking about,
well, based on longevity?
yes.
Right,
Well, but those are step increases,
Yes,
really.
but
You
I
come in at
mean,
one level
something
and
that's
you-
lower,
Right.
so the person that's just started
Right.
is not making the same amount as somebody that's been here.
Right.
I'm just concerned about what impact that would have on the negotiations with the individual unions.
Well, it would have a big impact. We'd have to open up negotiations all around. And what I'm saying is, starting July 1, we're going to be doing that with all 3 of them.
Right.
I would think you'd be able to do that with new employees coming in, not with existing employees, if you put it in step. I would assume that might be a
No.
little bit more.
Well, the existing employees basically would all be a top step, whatever that is, and then
Wherever
you
they
just
are.
back
Would you
it up.
lower the rate for
That
the
move
new
them to-
employee, or
Right,
would you
right.
increase everyone that's been there?
Exactly.
How would we?
I don't
would
know.
we-
I would lower the
Ideally,
rate for
you
the
would
new employee.
create-
It would be in
you
between
would get
the
the
truck driver's
long-term
rate
employees to
and
work,
the equipment
and
operator's
then
rate,
back the rest of them
someplace
We
in
down.
have to
between.
plan for it and put it in the future
In,
projections.
that's right, not this particular budget, but the 18 budget. All of this would come to fruition, yes.
Now,
That was
like
a discussion I didn't want to hear.
what Peter's saying, to raise the clerical position, I mean, that's why the new clerk that we just advertised was for $17 an hour, because it would be bumping up against people who are already there.
Yeah. So let me understand that you're not talking about increasing your personnel line item, doing this, or are you?
No, I would take the money out of summer help.
Okay.
Peter, question.
Yep.
What fields do you currently, cut and maintain?
Currently, we do American Legion, we do Little's Hill, West Street, Harry Murch Park, the town hall, police station, the library, and all the small areas. Like there's a couple larger areas off of Tenney and Jewett. So currently, we have the mower that I have a price for that I think the Park and Rec talked about.
Yes, yeah.
And we've kept that in really good shape, and it was purchased or leased in 2008. We maintain it all the time, change the blades every week, grease it every week, because it's mowing, 30, 40 hours a week.
Yep.
So, to keep it maintained like that, it makes it last longer. And we're gonna take this next mower, and then we'll be able to mow even quicker, because we'll have two of the better mowers.
Yep.
And plus, we're gonna be adding on another, what, I think it's 6 or 7 acres out behind the church on East Main Street.
So you're out-
That will be mowing that.
So to that point, all right, and I'm hoping I'm not overstepping here. So obviously we have a lot of fields that are being developed, you know, over at Pembroke and everything else.
That's the school that takes care of that.
Well, exactly. Now, I also know they have concerns from a budgetary standpoint of even having to bring on someone new to take on those fields. And would it be cheaper to somehow, do your people have room in their time to maybe take on those fields as well, and maybe transfer some of that budget to you guys to increase your budgets a little bit in terms of salaries and everything, to save some money on that side? Because I know what their thoughts are initially, and that is to bring someone new on. But yet, if you guys had some time on your end, could you actually add that to your level, especially with the better equipment that you have coming in? I don't even know if that's a feasible question.
I know that they've purchased equipment, and, you know, they have the turf field now that they don't need to mow, so that's
Right.
3 acres of area that they don't have to deal with. And they still have the same, I think the only thing they added up at Pembroke was the 2 acres or 3 acres for that soccer field / baseball field. And I know they're gonna have to mow around the building, you know, more, you know, there's definitely more areas to mow, it's gonna take longer.
Right.
It takes longer for snow removal. So, right now, it would be tough for us to go up there and do mowing,
It would, okay.
so.
The mower that Park and Rec is replacing,
We're gonna keep the one
You're
that's there.
keeping the other one?
Yep.
because
It-
what would the trade-in value be?
Minimal, you know, it's,
I guess she's
it's,
like
you know,
maybe-
2008,
Yeah.
so.
And
it-
how much is it? Because he wasn't quite sure.
It was,
It was 5,000.
Well, he's got a 5, a 3, and a 3.
No, that's all more than that.
it's $12,896.74.
Yeah.
It's a 72-inch, but they'll lease it, and, you know, we
Right.
maintain it, and it, you know, I'm surprised how good a shape the mower is in, you know, after this many years. It's a good mower.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's a lot, every
Yep.
week, every day.
And, you know, one thing that we, you know, we try to sharpen the blades once a week. You know, it gets greased, you know, almost daily. And, you know, we change the oil, you know, I think it says every 500 hours, and we're changing the oil when it needs to be done.
So you
know.
maintain it completely, but
Yep.
they lease it.
They lease it, we keep it. It's like they lease it for
Yeah.
us, which is great.
Right,
And,
exactly. I
you know,
remember that.
we mow about 2 days a week.
deal.
So we, you know, and with this, these two mowers together, we'll be able to stay mowing 2 days a week. You know, because we're busy doing other things. And I know they've talked about the rail trail, but this, in my opinion, is not the mower to use on the rail trail. My opinion is to use the brush cutter on the rail trail. You know, when that comes about, you know, it's enclosed cab, it's air conditioned. You can do it in the rain, you can do it in the hot weather. You don't have to worry about poison
That's
ivy.
gonna be you guys, right?
Yeah, you don't have to worry about, you know, breathing in all that dust. You don't have to worry about, you know, hitting, bees nest. So you just, you know, we just have to get cleared by National Grid that we can go down there with that arm, and, you know, we'll have to stay away from the wires, to, you know, which is not a problem. You know, if we put the arm all the way up, it wouldn't hit it, but you have to stay, you know, 10 feet away. It may be shorter in that, you know, or further with the high tension wires. And we'll find that out, and we'll get cleared to do that, so. But this mower here is not the mower to be driving 5 miles of, you know, down the road and,
Yeah.
you know, eating all that dust, poison ivy, and bees nest, and who knows what
Because at the
else.
moment, it's just weeds, right?
Yeah.
It's not gonna be grass,
Yeah.
per se.
And
It's
who
just
knows
weeds
what's
and
underneath
stuff.
everything. This brush machine's made to do what it's doing,
Yeah.
so. And it's an enclosed cab, you know, you can go down there when it's bad weather, so when there's less people on that, so.
Yeah, yeah. That's,
So you're not running into people, literally.
yeah. Okay.
Do you wanna know anything about snow and ice right now?
Oh, yes. Yes, we do. I almost forgot
Everybody's
that.
favorite.
Currently, the balance is $3,273.16. Bills going in this week will be $43,887.13. So that will be over $40,613.97.
Over how much?
Huh?
What was that number? We're over?
$40,613. So,
And that's all of the expenses you have. You don't have any other expenses that you're waiting to bill or?
there's a couple small bills, like the Napa bill's like $245.
Oh, yeah,
but
yeah, that's-
all that won't be
Yeah, no.
snow and ice.
I hear good weather next week.
I'm hoping good weather until,
Yeah.
if it
So
didn't
what-
snow
Every
for,
day.
So
you know,
we're down
for
to 260
20 years, that'd
free
be fine
cash.
with me.
Yeah.
Which reminds me, Mr. Chairman, at last week's selectmen's meeting, Peter requested of the selectmen to deficit spend.
Yeah.
You guys need a copy?
And I will need a vote from you
Must, yeah.
today.
To do it.
To
Yeah, okay, that's enough. of
to
this.
do that as well.
Okay, yeah.
Just clarity on that, our vote was up to $200,000.
Yes, I thought that was very generous of you to be giving him
I
$200,000 of free cash.
Right?
Yeah.
At that level, that's in what, $60,000 more than what it is would be today,
Oh, okay.
so, I mean, what are we gonna do?
I'm
Just
kidding.
gonna sell us the bad news, even though,
Yeah.
if there is. which there won't be.
Do you want to vote right now?
That would be good.
Okay, could I have a motion to allow the highway department to deficit spend?
Want to cap it like the
Oh.
selectmen did?
No, I don't want to
Okay.
cap it, you know, there's, I don't
moved.
anyway, I mean, we're gonna have to pay it, so. What do you think? Okay,
Yeah, I moved.
can I
he
have a motion? You
seconded.
moved it, and he seconded it?
Yeah.
I
Oh,
second.
while I was talking, you
Yeah,
guys did it.
we did it already.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to allow the highway department to deficit spend. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. You're good.
Thank you, have a good day.
Okay, you too. Linda.
On my little
Yes,
street, I
you.
understand the abuse of
Okay,
plowing.
all right.
I'll be back
Um,
ASAP, okay?
We're not down there.
I know, we may not be
Try
here.
and move quickly to-
We may not be here.
Yeah.
Take your stuff.
We have,
What did I miss? I missed
Is there anyone
fire.
at the police?
Yeah, administration and assessing.
Yeah.
we've done.
It's
all
assessor.
that.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, actually,
See that one.
Jay just, oh, he's calling me right now.
Hit the
He had
Now.
car trouble and he's trying to get here by 12:30. I told him we might not be here.
Yeah, the only
Ah.
thing was that they're bringing the plumbing up to the same rate as,
Oh,
but we already knew that.
yeah.
We've done council on aging.
Good afternoon, so
fire
good
and-
afternoon, everybody.
You know what, buddy?
Good afternoon.
How is everybody doing?
Wrapping up my,
Great.
Yeah.
I heard the good.
Thank you for volunteering. I know it's a long day. I call it Super Saturday.
That's not quite what we call it.
Well, yeah,
All of a
it's
check
better
we've
than
done.
every night all
All right, I
winter.
didn't miss.
It's
Every
definitely a
Wednesday, anyway.
good way to do this.
Saturday.
It is
And
super
I always sit
Saturday.
through them all,
Yeah,
I
you
know you do.
do.
all the budgets.
Well, you get a sense for the crowd before.
Being, it's being engaged, and there's a tactical advantage to it.
That's how I'm trained.
So that's why I do that.
That's
I
right.
love that, a tactical advantage.
I didn't know
Leave
that
it
we
to the
were.
police to have
Plus,
that.
we're tired by the end.
I know.
Yeah.
So, for all who do not know me, I'm Don Cudmore, I'm your police chief. I'm a prideful resident of Georgetown, so I feel the pain, I know all the pain. I know we're in a lot of pain this year. I'm here to provide you a summary and update of your police department. I know I am the biggest townside budget, but I've provided a package that's fairly comprehensive. I've also brought some additional documents here that I'll hand out. They're 3-hole punch for your binders, so I know it's all very succinct for you folks. And for the new folks, I traditionally give an executive summary. It takes about 15 minutes. I can do that. For people who don't know what we do a lot of other things other than just police the community. We handle your animal control services. We handle harbor master and environmental issues on our 2 wonderful ponds. So we do things like that, all at no cost to the town, because we've somehow managed to muscle them into the police expense account, although that account has been static for a number of years, as you know. I just do a lot of praying in May. I think that's what I've come down to after 3 years as the chief, that I see the numbers and I just say a prayer, and so far it's been
That's so- yeah,
it's
they
been working
increase,
pretty well.
really.
So, you know, I know Mr. Dobie had asked concerning fuel cost. It's exciting this year. I've been through 5 years of the prayers not being answered, and
Yeah,
we've had
yeah.
up to $4 plus a gallon for fuel, and we've only budgeted a third of that. So what I've done with that particular number, It's not documented because I don't know where we're gonna be, because this economy is fragile as the presidential election. So what I've done is I've taken that extra funding that potentially sitting there in my fuel account, and I hope to redirect that funding to a desperately needed hot water tank and system replacement in the public safety building. I've had my fingers crossed on that for about 2 years now. It's really starting to no longer go ignored, and it's not big enough for capital improvement, so it has to come out of my budget. Building maintenance, of course, is always taxed because we only get $11,083 to maintain that entire building. So I will hope to redirect the funding that I have to get that hot water tank done in May or June. And it's just not high enough to hit capital improvement.
Well, it
because
doesn't really have to hit, it's a one-time cost. How much is it?
Between $4,800 and $5,000 because it's a commercial building, and when it was put in phases because the building was built in phases.
Yeah.
So we're gonna fix it, as we did the boiler system through Mike's energy program, and it will be set for another, it's probably 30 years old.
Yeah.
So
That's
it's
unbelievable.
it's done us well.
Yeah,
Especially where we've
that
fallen
is.
on some hard times with the water condition and so forth, so I'm not
You're gonna
concerned.
take care of it this year.
I'm not concerned about it. I'm gonna take care of it this year. I've had 4 different appraisals, and there's a lot of opinions about energy savings and the like, and what I've done is I'll sit down with Mike when we finally punch the contract. I've got some local people who are doing us some great favors and getting me some analysis on that. So with any luck, it won't break before I can do it, and it won't snow again, and the building won't be damaged, and the prayers.
Amen.
So how would you like me to proceed? I can do a general overview of why I'm requesting increases, and I know that.
Yeah, that's probably the best thing to do, I think.
I think that there's only one increase outside the 1.5, and it actually, I think statistically comes out to 1.66 on the salary increases, because there's movement. We've had several retirements. I've had to make several promotions. I've lost a third of the command staff through retirement.
Wow.
Our newest challenge, yes, and our newest challenge, as my friend Peter spoke about, is retention. There's this new element to my profession which hasn't occurred in probably 20 years, is lateral transfers. I'm suffering right now from fatigue with lateral transfers.
It's a lateral transfer.
Just a police officer going from this community and working in another after we've already trained them. And they're doing it for a myriad of reasons. Benefits, pay, overtime. The Georgetown Police Department, we don't offer a lot of overtime to our staff, because what we do is we utilize a reserve police force, which saves us a lot of money.
Yeah.
Let's be truthful about that. And officers who potentially could be working in Beverly or Danvers have unlimited overtime, and actually are required and mandated to work overtime. Their insurance costs are less. These are all young officers now. They're not old like me. So they elect to move on. And then I have to now retrain, rehire, re-equip on the back end, and we're in the process of doing that right now.
Okay.
I had brought a transfer forward, and I fully understand that it's better to look at it holistically at the end, but it's my duty to tell you where I'm at with that.
Okay.
The newest officer that I've had appointed through the Board of Selectmen has signed a 3-year retention agreement. That's something brand new here.
Oh, okay.
I'm glad that happened, and everybody was amenable, approved by Mike's office and legal counsel. And what that will do is protect our training monies in the event someone elects to be poached, transfer, to another department. My officers are very, very valuable officers, and I'll tell you why. Our department, and you know this, and it's my job to be prideful of the department, is a very modern police force, 21st century policing models, accredited. You don't read about us in the newspapers, knock on wood again in a prayer. We do very, very good work for this community, and the community does treat us very well. And I think sometimes we get lost in the rhetoric of how bad things are. And I appreciate that, my officers appreciate that, my civilian staff appreciate that. The retention situation is an issue. There are hourly wage employees in my building, dedicated employees with over 20 years of service, making $15,000 to $20,000 less than their counterparts in other police departments. But they elect to stay because they are dedicated and they love our community like I do. So that's a very delicate balance that we're working on as a team. And you're right, comprehensive planning. I'm at the steering committee meetings. We're looking
That's
for
what we gotta
strategic
do.
planning.
Yep.
We're looking 10 years down the road, not next year. So
Yeah.
with that being said, so I can tackle this however you like. or I can just keep rambling on and hitting targets, so how would you like me to do this?
You kind of hit on the salary already. Is
Yeah,
that-
so the
that's
salary is
why
just a
you've got all
1.6,
this-
huh?
Yes.
That's why
Well, it
you-
comes out to about 1.66, but there's a reason for that. I think if you
Yeah,
remember.
because you've got like some going up and some going down.
There's a lot of change, and
But
what
that's
happened
because
is,
of
the
internal-
contract changes, so people are making different wages,
Yeah.
but it's a competitive wage nonetheless, at some levels, not all levels. And I think that in looking at where we are with that particular number, the town held steadfast on some of our employees with regard to our communication center. Very low pay, but we held steadfast on the 1.5. My dedicated employees stayed, and I did have a transfer to Andover for a $20,000 raise, longtime employee. So I don't like when that happens, because, you know, we have to retrain them, and there's an ancillary cost to that
Right.
with backfill and so forth.
So, for fiscal year 17, because I don't want to like go into each individual thing, you've got
On the total, yeah.
11.9 FTE.
Yes, and.
And is that what you have in
Yes.
fiscal 16?
The Georgetown Police Department has had 11 full-time officers since 1999. We have never added to staff. We know that.
I just want to make
Yep.
sure that people, like the townspeople
town's aware of
know
it, yep.
that when we see, you know, this nice ceremony the other day of that it wasn't an additional person.
We're losing one to bring in another.
Yeah, but people need to know that
Need to
you're
know
not
that.
adding
And
anyone.
I try to convey that. The .9 is the administrative assistant. She works
Yep.
35 hours a week.
Yeah.
And she's not just, we don't even call her an administrative assistant. I don't need one. I do my own work. She does more than an administrative assistant. She handles pistol permits and budgeting with me. She's the payroll clerk. She's the receivables, the payables for us, and then
Runs
working
your
as my
office.
partner, yeah. So I think the administrative assistant title is 1990s. And as people are aware, when I took over as chief 3 years ago, I eliminated my lieutenant's position. I put on the back end another patrol officer. So when you look at the FTE, it stayed the same. Titles changed, but I took my lieutenant's responsibilities and just brought them with me into the chief's office. We have one lieutenant. It's clear, it's concise, it's not heavy, and I have one sergeant per shift.
Yeah.
And then we run our department with 60 to 100 reserve shifts a month. The town doesn't know when a reserve officer responds to their home unless unless they're identified as such, or they just have knowledge, because they're all trained the same. They just don't make the money nor have the benefits. But I have complete confidence in all of them that they do the same job as a full-time officer. The caveat, though, is very difficult to continue to run our departments with part-time personnel. I mean, everybody knows policing's complicated today. Society's more complicated than it's ever been. There's a lot tasked with the police. So we as police officers, especially in a community like ours, need to be trained, modernized, and we're keeping up with that. But at some point, our community's going to have to take a look at, and I have this comparison for you. We are the second lowest per capita police department under 9,000 population, with the exception of the town of Merrimack.
And we're just under 9.
Right. That chart will explain, we only have 1.26 police officers per 1,000.
Yeah.
The FBI and the DOJ suggest at least 2 per 1,000. So if our population continues to grow, as it's grown in 30% in the last 10 years, we will go under 1 officer per 1,000. Now, when our calls for service, which I have data for you if you'd like it, I have calls for service increasing in the 30% range. And then man-hour allocation, which Chairman Trapani had tasked us at the last State of the Town address to be data-driven. I like data, I have it. I produce those analysis to show that the man-hour allocation, for example, for a domestic violence call, they're up 26%, but they're also spending 46 additional hours on those calls because of the mandates of taking care of our victims, taking care of our children, if elderly are involved. So our officers have to spend more time on that one call for service. On the flip side, I did a 5-year analysis on our officer-initiated calls. Now, there's 2 types of police calls. Police officers are dispatched to calls because of a problem or a request, and then officers are going out and initiating calls, i.e. traffic enforcement, coming upon something, random patrol, saturation patrol, things like that. Our department in the last 5 years is down 26% on officer-initiated calls because, quite frankly, with only 2 officers on duty per shift, which a lot of people don't know that's what our manpower allocation is, around the clock, that's what 11 people get you, so people can take a day off. They're stretched, you know, they're going from call to call to call and report to report, so they're not doing our traffic enforcement as we need. I currently have 18 locations that I'm responsible for because of complaints, quality of life issues for people in their neighborhoods. The American Legion Beach is a perfect example.
Yeah, yeah.
To have only 2 officers on call and have to respond to 11 calls for service, there's not much time to be spent at the beach. Because you have alarm calls, you have a medical aid call, you have calls for service at the PD. We handle probably 50 visitors a day at the PD for various issues here in our town. Larceny is up. I mean, scam with regard to identity fraud. And I just don't like to take a report from a resident. I'd like to help them, try to see if we can capture some funds or get their property back. We've been successful in the last year with our diligence of detective work, getting people back their stolen property. We have a very high clearance rate in that regard. So we're getting a good bang for our buck in our police department. The only other increase, with the exception of the salary line item, was a $4,500 increase on fleet. And I'll tell you, I'll reluctantly withdraw it, and I'll tell you why. Everybody loves our fleet, so as do I. It's one of my favorite tasks. And we keep a fleet maintenance program for the town of Georgetown that I wrote a grant about 3 or 4 years ago. It will narrow down fuel usage, it will narrow down idling hours, it will narrow down which officer drives the vehicle to create fuel costs versus expense costs. So we assign our officers depending on how they operate vehicles, whether they're just like in our family, good operators, you know. So I track that information. And we used to come here in 2008, 2009 with the bleak outlook of how bad our fleet was.
Yeah.
And I've reported in the last 5 years, even when Chief Mulligan was here, that this program and this leasing program we have in place works. So I don't come to the board, to the town meetings, to the FinCom asking and begging for vehicles, because if you look at our fleet, the lease program that I instituted 5 years ago included replacing 2 vehicles every 2 years, and then supplementing what's in the fleet, and then getting rid of our old vehicles. Prior to my tenure as a lieutenant, we would run a vehicle till it died and have the fire department beat the vehicle up down in the highway garage, and it was just a piece of metal. I trade them in now. Mike brought that to the community, and I think he hits the nail on the head. Him and I work on this. When a vehicle has reached its useful life for the town, you capsulate the amount of dollars that it's worth, you get that money back, and you move on. So all of the monies that I get back when I sell these vehicles at auction pursuant to policy, they're surplus by the board, they're auctioned online, I don't have to deal with it, there's a percentage we pay, but that money's put back into the general fund, and then we buy a new vehicle, and we lease to buy.
Right, yes.
And what happens is, getting 2 cars every 2 years, what I do is I take my analysis of the fleet, and we look at our miles, we see if a vehicle's costing us out because of repairs. Everybody gets a lemon once in a while, and Lord knows I've had mine. With these cars, we don't buy 8-cylinder vehicles. We're very, very astute with how we use them. You can see your police vehicles in this town are kept clean, they're maintained, and that's to your officers' credit. They wash the cars themselves. Some police departments run them through car washes, and they have contracts. I don't have a car wash in Georgetown, so
You do.
I do. It's called the police. You know, those officers shovel this building during all of these snowstorms. They're doing it in uniform. They're doing it with ballistic vests. They're doing it with gun belts on. We don't have a snow removal budget for the PD building because we do it ourselves. I bought them a snow blower this year, and we didn't get much snow to use it, but we have one.
That's why you did the snow, that's good.
Somebody
Thank you.
gifted me some money, so now we have a snow blower. I'm working with the fire department to get them one too, so. Those are the good things. I think sometimes we forget there's some good things out there. But if this board needs to retract the $4,500 because my contract hasn't changed, my line item for cruiser replacement's been $34,000 for like
Long time.
So what I do,
Since you started it. but
yeah,
whenever that-
and what I do is I have to redirect funding when I come up on a trade of a vehicle. If I have to buy new lights, you know, these car companies, they change the style and venue of these vehicles, and
course
so
they do.
my police equipment does not fit on from a Charger with a state bid to a Ford. So now nothing fits. And we try to retro with brackets and so forth, but sometimes you're just beyond that.
Yeah.
And we have some decent equipment now, but that was the increase. I'm buying Ford right now. I'm getting away from Dodge. I'm not going to say anything good, bad, or indifferent about Dodge, but take from it what you will. I'm getting away from the state bid on those Dodges, and I'm going Ford. Because Ford got out of the police business.
Oh, they did?
But for about 2 years. And then they built a purpose-built vehicle, especially for police work. That vehicle has sustained a lot better than the companion vehicle of Dodge and their utility vehicles, which is great for New England because we spend 6 months of our time, what? Fighting weather.
Oh, yeah.
So you get away from those vehicles. The utilities have been great. I have 2 of them. I have 3 of them now. I'm going to replace a couple of. I have to move some of. You can see the older vehicles, our unmarks.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do some flipping around and so these vehicles don't age out on us, and sell those vehicles. So.
Just
Yes,
real
sir.
quick one. You mentioned the Ford utilities, and you mentioned sometimes getting a lemon. There's the second to last one, it's 2015, in excellent shape with a lifespan of 2 years.
Mhm.
Is there a reason for that?
Well, what happens is, depending on who's assigned to that vehicle, I will use that vehicle exclusively for 2 years. So what I'll do is, at least I have a newer vehicle on the fleet. It's the condition of the vehicle, but it's the life cycle of the vehicle because of the fact that that vehicle will be a primary vehicle from the day I wake up when I get approval to get new vehicles. That could change. This thing is a moving target because if all of a sudden I find that I've switched the assignments around and the vehicle is getting some more life out of it, depending on the operator or the repair bills, I'll update my chart. So it's moving the vehicle for its primary use. We have primary patrol vehicles and then we switch them into a secondary role. Sir?
Chief, I have a concern that, we talked about American Legion.
Mhm.
I think on a go-forward basis, American Legion is the tip of the iceberg. The world is changing. It's
Mhm.
becoming a little more violent, certainly more dangerous.
That
We
was
have
in
a-
my executive summary, but you're absolutely right.
We have a whole bunch of new recreational areas. The area behind the church, which is, it's fairly isolated.
It's far out and away.
Right. You've got the trails.
I got the Pembroke School.
Right. I'm concerned that you could become very overwhelmed very easily.
I think you're right, but I think that, you charged me as your chief 3 years ago to run the police department. I bring concerns to you. I think that I could not disagree any more with that. I'm very concerned about not adding to full-time staff. I've been before the boards probably for the last 5 years, and every year I'm supposed to get an officer, but then we'll talk to you in the fall because they have to hire a highway guy or a school guy, and I said, okay, because, I have enough to get the job done, but
But you're
it's getting
stretched.
busy. It's getting busy.
And as you say, physically, you can't have an officer down at American Legion, and not only that, it may require more than one officer.
Most calls do.
Right.
Most calls
And
do.
so what happens? That means you're uncovered somewhere else.
What I did too is if you look at the per capita cost of the police, looking at everybody likes data and data-driven to compare for analysis from other communities. I look at communities, and I think you would know as a FinCom with regard to levy limits and how much is spent in each department. You take a town like Hamilton, for example, they have 13 full-time officers. They have 3 officers per shift with that allocation. So what happens is I only have 2. So if an officer calls in sick or is accrued a vacation day, I have to fill that with a reserve. It's a mandatory fill, or else we'll only have 1 police officer on duty. So what we would do under a plan of adding to staff is I would have 3 scheduled per shift. If 1 is off, at least I don't have the need to fill it all of the time based on the day, the time, the shift. Summers are busy. Winters get quiet. Everyone sees our new traffic pattern in town, which is stopped. That's what we do. We just
Yeah.
stop. But, I've lost grant funding as a result of that. My crashes are down because it's tough to crash when you're sitting in line all the time. So,
It can happen.
I did get a grant, my operating under the influence grant, and I had officers out there. They made over 100 stops. Those are proactive police stops for the protection of our residents and our community. So yes, we are stretched thin. Ed.
Is it possible, just asking, that we could work with you in terms of future budgeting to, again, look at additional police officers?
Yes, I prepared another officer here. I didn't submit it to Mike. Mike said, why don't we hold off and wait, because him and I would do it as a partnership. It's already on an Excel spreadsheet. It would already be
I'm
dumped
not
in.
gonna overstep my bounds, you know.
No, but I think what we do is, Mike and I are strategists and teammates, so we, anything I try to move forward, I work with him.
Right, it's not I don't have a concern about the quality, it's the quantity that I'm concerned about.
I'm concerned too, and I think that's why each year I bring it to the forefront. I've been contacted by many parents about our district. I probably spend 20% of my day making sure the district's safe. We're very involved in our school districts, as we should be, and I'm very involved with our seniors, as I should be. The schools crisis plan, I just trained the schools in the ALICE program, which is a safety plan. That would have cost the district $18,000. I did it in-house for free. Well, not free, it cost me some money. I had to do some juggling of schedules, because I saw this coming back in 2012. I trained 2 full-time officers as ALICE instructors. And I knew that someday there would be a federal mandate coming down from Department of Education, the Governor's Task Force, to have our schools trained in ALICE. I took the additional step this year. This month is our breakout. We're going to train all of our town buildings, all 5 of our town buildings, in safety, personal safety, security within their own environment. These people are very vulnerable over here. Yeah. Some people aren't so happy to come to town hall sometimes, as we know. A lot of them work alone. The doors aren't secure. The windows aren't secure, because it has to be a customer-friendly environment, too.
Right.
Puts them at risk, so we're going to try to work with our folks. Those officers have stepped up, and they're doing that on their own to try to help our community.
How many the reserves you were talking about, what does that do to these numbers as far as?
I have 15 reserves.
15 reserve individuals, and
Officers.
how many, if you made them into the amount of time they put in, how many additional people would that come to?
I assume you have this, it's an addendum. If you go to page,
No, I don't think we do.
okay, well, I have copies. What it is there's a detail.
I'm looking at what that looks like. I'm like, no, I haven't seen that.
It may have been,
It
Mike
may
and
have
I
been
went
in the
back and
stuff
forth.
that Jim sent us.
Unfortunately, the Excel programs here in Georgetown, when they replace your computer, they put 16 on it, then they put 14 and 13, because we're all trying to catch up.
Yeah.
And columns are missed, and pages are missed, and
Sorry.
tabs, so just to ensure. If you,
Oh, yeah, no, this is cool.
the model that you're talking about, you need another one?
No, we got it.
Okay.
Jim's holding on to them.
The model you're talking about is the dollar number under
Sorry.
under 5130 overtime, and if you look at that's overtime,
Yeah.
and then you have 5150, and then you have 5150 total.
Yeah.
All of those numbers combined for that 133,367 is a component of reserve coverage. So it's a very loose number, because at times I may have an officer that's out sick. It may be a full-time shift covered, or it may be a reserve covered. So it could cost $300, or it could cost $117. So what I have to calculate, and it's a broad number, but it is detailed because I keep an analysis of it. If I add to staff, if I were to add to staff, I could lose a component of my reserve force. So I would lose, it wouldn't be, if I had to come in here excluding Fringe, because he takes care of Fringe on an employment hire. If you're looking just at a straight salary number, that would go into the PD salary line item. You're looking at about $72,000 to hire a baseline patrolman, excluding what shift they worked, any assignments. But I could probably do it for $40,000, because I would have to then reallocate that account, 5150, and say, look, I'm not going to need 13 reserves this week because I have a full-time complement of officers to cover these shifts. Then, as our department is getting more junior, and I'm losing my senior people, they have less time off, they have less benefits, contracts have changed. And as I lose my officers who have 30-plus years, which I'm probably, in my executive summary, I would have told you, in the next 2 years, I'm probably going to lose 3 additional full-time people, 2 to retirement, and probably 1 to another lateral, because I see something coming down the road with civil service with one of my officers.
Not fiscal year 17?
Well, I have one right now going on in 17.
I was gonna ask you about that.
What can happen
Sorry,
is if a community pulls an officer on a civil service list, and only about 40% of our full-time officers live here in Georgetown. They live in other communities that they grew up in, and they come here to work. they get residency preference, they could have veteran status or whatever their issues are, and their cards are pulled in their community, they could be lateraled and they poach them from me. And then I have to
guess
start
the reason,
over.
the question I had was,
Yeah.
is that to Ed's question about coverage is, we show that with the 11, and these are the full-time officers, we're at 1.26.
Mhm.
If you included the reserves in the officers that are in town, what's our?
It's 1.26, it's a full-time equivalent comparison. Your reserve officers, in the end, on the PD, there's only 2 people on duty. You could have 50 reserve officers. It's what's scheduled to work on that particular day. Another thing is with Obamacare and with the Fair Standard Labor Act, I cannot take a reserve officer and plug them in on a consistent schedule or basis, because I will then in turn be required to provide them benefits.
Oh, okay.
You cannot supplant your full-time, it's all employees, not just on the PD. So I have to be very careful when I schedule reserves, that they're not working a consistent schedule every week encompassing above
Yeah,
uh,
above the
whatever hours.
20 hours.
Like they don't work every
Because then they could come,
Sunday for-
right, and then they could
'cause
come
then
back to me, and we have to be very careful with that. Secondly, if they work greater than 40 hours in one pay period, I'm mandated by federal statute to pay them overtime on their rate.
Right.
So then, and now I'm embarking on using part-time people at full-time wages, potentially putting them on a consistent schedule. It can get, it gets complicated, and it's very hard for the lieutenant to manage, but we do that electronically with a scheduling system, so it helps us.
So they're only there to fill when
Whenever
people are out?
That's correct,
They're
sir.
not there to supplement the police force?
Nope, and how I would supplement your ALB issue is I would work with the Park and Rec to see what our timelines are. We need data. I've been following this for a couple of years. And to say there's a problem at the ALB, I get it, there is a problem. But we need to know when, we need to know what the problem is so that we can counter it with coverage.
Yeah.
Just sitting someone down there doesn't fix that problem.
Right.
If it's crowded and there are people there, fixes it absolutely. This thing keeps people under control, right? But if we have if we data drive that issue and say, look, we need someone down there from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. on Saturday. That's when our critical time is. That's what we need to do, and that's what I will do with the Park and Rec. And so that money that they talk about, detail money or staffing, comes out of that line right there in this budget. Because then if you look at the regular, to give everybody paid 40 hours a week is your 11.9 people, and then everything else is covered by way of offering, if someone's available, and reserve officers. And then that's just the police side. The dispatch side has always had a vacancy. We have a 2-shift-a-week vacancy. We've had 4 full-time dispatchers for 31 years since I've been here. We're supposed to have 5. We take 2 shifts a week on the rotation and we fill it with a reserve officer. They're scheduled in 2 arenas. It saves us money. I don't have a full complement of dispatchers. I take reserve officers and they're trained as dispatchers. They can perform a dual function.
Okay. Phil had a question.
Yeah,
Oh, a comment.
Throughout the year, and especially after any national news, I probably have felt, I don't know, maybe 100 calls or 100 conversations with parents who, one, didn't realize that we really don't have a school resource officer, right? And second, they didn't realize that we only have 2 police officers on any given shift. Most people in town don't realize that.
Right.
I don't know how there's
Yes, exactly.
I don't know how the force multiplier effect really works out there, but I talk, people say, there's gotta be 5 or 6 cops on the road all the time. I see them everywhere, and I say, I keep my mouth shut.
Yeah, good.
As do I.
Yeah, exactly.
But, if there is, if there's more, I guess as a selectman and having public safety report to us, if there's one area that I worry about the most right now, even with Alice training, which I think is a fantastic step in the right direction, I think we're just an exposed community, quiet community outside of everywhere. And I think the biggest risk we have personally is something happening in our schools. So when you're considering your budget this year, think of what we just talked about with this, that we can't do enforcement, we can't do enough proactive enforcement on the roads. Just think about those things that I truly believe we've got to add another full-time police officer.
And to add to the chairman's description, I had put forth a plan probably 3 years ago And by the way, I do apply for grants through the Department of Justice. I just applied for 2 officers. We don't, I did get an SRO, it was my grant back in 2004.
Right.
3-year grant for 150, 1-year retention, and then in 2009, our entire national economy collapsed, and we sat here in this room and banged our heads against the wall, somehow made it work. We lost that SRO.
Right.
And given the climate and given the push that I get from our community, I had devised a plan with that full-time officer to create that position, to be an SRO, and somehow take our schedule, break it down. Maybe there's a different way I can do business so that we do have a component of school coverage. I have, and he doesn't like me to use his name, but I do anyways. Sergeant Rodden is assigned to the day shift. Sergeant Rodden is a unique individual. He's a certified detective because he's been promoted through these retirements. He's was a certified school teacher, and he's a police sergeant. He was an SRO. So you talk about a guy that knows a lot about how to handle the schools. He handles the schools for this town and this police department with his cell phone. Principals call him with advice, and he's handling it, and he's doing it. So I know if he's watching, I'm going to take some
hear
heat,
about
but
it.
I'm the
Yeah.
chief, he's a sergeant, so we'll deal with that. But he's doing a great job in that role. However, he is a patrol sergeant, and he has another town to patrol other than our district. So we are making do, Ed, but we are stretched very thin, and thanks to the dedication of these folks and keeping our eye on the ball, we're getting it done.
I agree, though, with the chairman. I just think that we always talk about investments in the schools. What's the point of investment in the schools if there's no safety?
That's true. And we work with them. We actually I'm working through NEMLEC, which is our consortium of police services that I'm a member of, that I brought when I became chief. We're getting all of the crisis plans through NEMLEC, through the school threat assessment team. We're using all of those exemplar models and best practices to help our schools. It's a very delicate situation to have a measurable amount of success with your SRO when you come back, because you are deterring problems and you're solving problems before they occur. So when you identify a problem and you fix it,
It doesn't show
there's no
up
data
anywhere.
to say, well,
Yeah.
you know, there
Yeah.
was an assault, but we found the bad guy.
Yeah.
What it is there was rumor there was going to be assault, and we interjected and
Right,
fixed
right.
that with them, with the administration. So I know the schools have a lot of issues right now. We do as a town. It's a collaborative effort, but it would be SRO as a primary. That would thwart some of our scheduling issues, and it would also prevent me from carrying 50. I need probably 3 more reserve officers, but I don't have any more guns. I got to buy guns. I've used my complement of firearms.
That's
So
an interesting
I would have to do that.
problem.
I have to buy them ballistic vests. I have to buy them uniforms. They need, my tasers are getting long in the tooth because we got that in 2009. So, you know, companies, everything gets new and improved, and the next thing you know, yours falls off the table. But a tool that has saved us thousands of dollars in injuries and keeping people compliant. It's been a good program, but I need to replace those, and they're expensive.
I have a few, a little list.
Sure.
Number 1, SRO is school resource officer.
I know I use my acronyms.
Well,
I
no,
shouldn't do that.
There's a
And
couple
ACO is
of new
animal control
people,
officer.
so
yeah.
they,
You're right.
just so that
you're
they
right.
knew, what you were referring to. Number 2, as a side note, with all the Craigslist issues in the news, I really appreciate. I don't use Craigslist, but thank you for having that.
Our
little-
online program, yes.
Yeah, in your little
You
parking
know what, I'm
spot
gonna give
over
out my
there.
executive summary, just so
That's
you
a
can.
great thing.
You can have something to read, and you can read it, you can take what you want from it, but.
Mike, this goes more to you, and we kind of like brought it up randomly today, is the American Legion Beach. And since we don't know what we're doing, and it would be a one-time, how could we fund that, like over the summer, if we decide that we need to do something? Can we fund it somewhere? I'm not asking for an answer now, but, it's been brought up to have some additional details after they figure out when it would be needed. Do we just take it out of the police budget for now and then back fund him when, you know where I'm getting with this?
And we just want to be aware, we have 2 potential reserve fund transfers, one on the early leave on the dispatcher that I had submitted, we're pushing off, plus that officer.
Right.
What I'm going to do, as I did last year, I did come back to this board for a transfer. I gave it back because what we thought was going to happen didn't happen. I do have a belief that, at least on the police department side, I know you have truth in budgeting with my numbers. I am one of the departments that if I ask for the money and I don't use it, I've given it back. Because again, the mayor, during May and my prayer sessions, if nobody gets sick and there's no big crime, and I'm fearing my budget's gonna run out because of lack of investigative monies or whatever. We've had some significant investigations this year, if you've been following the police department. On heroin raids and the like, and they're very
yeah.
expensive.
Yeah, there's been-
I've had some, couple of serious crimes, with driving people into Boston to the examiner's office. There's a lot of, those things cost a lot of money because I can't empty the town with duty officers. I have to call people in for that. So I try to make room for that. So that being said, I just want to be sure that we know that with our reserve fund, that I have them two hanging there. I may make the number in communications. I may not need that, but I will not know till I get there. Because I could have I have a dispatcher that may go out for 6 weeks with a health issue. If that happens, I got problems because that's a lot of coverage. But if it waits until after the first of the year, which is July for us, then I'm not too stressed out.
And my only
Bob,
other.
I'm not real clear on.
Well,
your
because
question.
we had talked, there was some conversation brought up over having, Sandy had mentioned, instead of just throwing people at Park and Rec, if we could do a one-time detail.
One-time
We
detail.
looked at like $8,400, I think is the number
Right.
she used.
But that's,
But versus putting a separate regularly scheduled officer on the weekend. I think it's less expensive that way, because we're not paying $42 an hour.
right, I just want, we can't expect the police department to pick up this extra money.
Right.
We have to give it to them somehow.
Right.
If that's what we're gonna do.
Yeah.
And I just wanna know, I don't need to know now.
I think I can answer the question. I think
Okay.
that what I can do is go to the drawing board for you, work with the Park and Rec, and determine a potential schedule and coverage and what that coverage would cost in total for the season. And then knowing, there has to be a Park and Rec schedule, right? So we have a schedule.
Right.
Weather is our foundation with regard to unannounced use, but there is announced use for the park, whether it be games, whether it be permits.
Right.
I take that number and I figure out how I can allocate coverage, whether it be full-time backfill or reserve officers, and put someone down there. We have some wonderful officers who were assigned on bike patrol. I had them down there last year. I actually put officers down there last year out of uniform to collect me some data.
Right.
As I had said, we were spying on people, and well, we need to, and so because I want data that's truthful, and I don't want exaggerated incidences. So let me work with Mike, and we'll get that question answered. That will be my job to try to figure out what police coverage could do that for you.
I have a question.
Sure.
When you're looking at this, obviously they dovetail very nicely. When the park opens, the schools are closed.
Right.
Couldn't we look at this as one big fix with the SRO and
Possibly,
American Legion?
yeah, possibly.
That's what I was thinking.
Yep.
Summertime,
Yeah,
for
because,
this
well-
role, and then the
Yeah.
school.
Well,
Right.
just be cautious of that, because I have thought of that. But the only thing is that, remember, when we dive into that position and we're underfunding it to use that other money, I'll still need the reserve officer to cover that shift, so I don't get to use the
But
full-timer for the
But
shift.
that's part
Yeah.
of the plan.
It's part of the analysis, that's
Right.
correct. That's correct.
Thank
Just
you.
have a quick question.
Sure.
And this is just a curious thing, just
Yeah.
doing numbers. So if you were to have a properly staffed per, what was this, FBI, you're down 7 police officers and a dispatcher?
Well, I think that 2 per 1,000, if you look at the sheet, no,
No one's at that number.
because it's about population, it's a per capita, but it's about density too. So if you take our communities and you take their recommendation, we look at more like 1.5 because of density. The city of Chelsea, 2 per 1,000 is a lot different than the town of Georgetown or the
Right.
town of Oxford.
Right.
So if density is your number, there's 2 numbers there. So it's 2 per 1,000 FBI DOJ, but if you look at that list, it's 1.5. I'm just starting to fall below. I'll be going into the single digits pretty soon if we continue this trend. And with these other issues on the table, it could be a solve.
Yeah.
And like I said, it may hit a couple of areas. We do that all the time here at the PD. We've done it with the animal control program. We've done it with the harbor master program. We've done it with a lot of the programs. Taking away civilian employees and assigning it to the police, it's cleaner.
Yeah.
Quite frankly, we're more professional, and we have the statute of authority behind us to make that program work.
I did have one more question.
Sure.
Because I know it's been coming up where you've had this retirement or lateral moving.
Yeah.
Do you have budgeted anyone here, a the police academy or anything like anything?
Well, again, what I'm hoping for is in April, when this officer starts in March, I get the definitive leave on the lateral officer. I have about $3,000 I have to come up with for the academy fee, which is now under our agreement. I'll have to redirect some funds in my police expense line item. Praying fuel stays where it is, and, you know, things like that.
Well, that was what you were going to come for.
Yeah.
And-
I'm not asking for the transfer for the
Right now,
academy
but,
itself.
you know, the possibility of a transfer to cover that.
Nope, only the salary, the 90%.
Oh, okay,
Yep.
okay.
I have not asked for the expenses. I think that my projections and my analysis of our expense account, we should get there.
Thank you.
I think if a town poaches a police officer, they should pay a penalty of $3,000 to pay for the training of a replacement.
I'm gonna bring that up to the state reps and the senators. I like that. Because I haven't been able to poach anybody, so they're always stealing my people.
I do like the
a good idea.
commitment of so much time.
Yep, 3 years, and we got legal counsel advice, and we got union sign off, and we got Mike Farrell's office to sign off as our personnel director, so it works.
Yeah, I think that's a
Otherwise, it
great.
turned into a farm system for the other town.
Well,
Right, exactly.
when I first started
Exactly what it is, yeah.
in Georgetown was a farm system back in the '80s when I was hired. Yeah, I saw 20 or 30 police officers come and go here because, but then the town fixed some of our issues and the contracts, and we have we have people who are retiring. This is a nice place to work. Don't get me wrong. So I think we're doing okay
What's
in
a
that
nice
regard.
place to work because of the police?
Thank you, Ed. I'm gonna go with that too.
Okay, is that it?
Get out.
Yo, I'm going now, man.
Yeah, I know.
Leave on a high note.
Yes.
This is nice, thanks.
All right, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, you didn't have to read all this.
Should we do Lou? You want to do water? Let him.
Speaking
I think
of
that's
water.
the last. Speaking.
Well, I've always said the most important things are the police are important, but when the power goes out or the water goes out, we got some problems. those two things, I mean, air and water.
Yeah, more important, even, yes.
So, Mike, at another point, we'll do admin and someone's planning. That was
Yeah,
I
planning
saw that.
and, right.
What about assessors?
Jay was coming.
I've been communicating with Jay. He got his car fixed at noon, and I told him
Don't
we probably
bother.
weren't gonna be
Yeah.
here.
Oh, okay. So we could do, you want to do those some other day? Is that at some other
Well,
meeting?
doesn't matter. I mean,
Well, we have to do Lou, don't we?
right.
The water
you
department.
should, yeah,
He's
yeah,
right
yeah.
behind
Yeah,
you
he's
there,
here.
Yes. I don't think, did Janet get you copies of the water budget? Because it did.
No.
You have
Oh,
them?
he has them.
Okay, good.
So good.
How's everybody doing?
Good, how are you?
Do you want to introduce yourself?
I will. I'm Nick Zamelet. I'm the general manager for the water department.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I have some extra copies if you.
Yeah.
He's
we-
got another
we
one.
did
Yeah,
that.
he'll need another
Yeah.
one.
Call
Yeah.
recess,
there's plenty
and that's
more,
why I was
actually.
like, oh, we'll just skip lunch and keep on.
I like it.
Maybe like 15 minutes, I think.
Are we waiting for one
Yeah,
more
that's
person?
what we decided to do. It's like, oh, since you just left, we'll go.
I think we need Ed here, right?
Yeah, he just came.
Should be right back.
Yeah, no problem.
I know, it's been, how come we're so fast this year? It's fabulous.
Don't
I
complain.
have all that food down there, though.
Oh, did you buy cold cuts or something?
Yeah. That's all right.
Sorry.
This looks very, detailed.
It is, indeed.
This is fabulous.
I will try to go through it briefly so that
Okay.
everybody understands. And if you have any questions, by all means, again, I do.
I like to follow along.
I know you do. So, as I said, my name's Lou Memolette. I'm the general manager for the water department, and I'm here to present the water department's budget. I guess, not that it goes without saying for me, because I understand it, but for the people at home, I guess, the water department is an enterprise fund, which means we generate our own revenue based upon the sale of water. So we're not really competing with the other departments that have already come before. And I think there's some very good reasons why municipal infrastructures should be set up and financed that way. Fortunately, the town has that set up, and I think it's to the town's benefit. What you have right now is basically what our budget represents. But a couple of things I wanted to just kind of go through, and I guess in the beginning is, the town has a municipal infrastructure for the water system that started back in 1935. That means the oldest pipe in the ground is a little over 80 years old. We're fortunate that most of the pipes that are in the ground are still in proper working order and are in good shape. Some need to be replaced, but most of those are in very, they're not in critical areas. They're usually on smaller side streets, and we're trying to develop a process now for investigating those and prioritizing what our needs are and to spend the money as wisely as possible. The town water department has a capital plan and a healthy amount of retained earnings to implement that capital plan, and I'll go through that in more detail. My general assessment of the water system right now is that we've definitely made a lot of improvements, both in terms of the operation of the facilities and the department as a whole, and in terms of the overall quality of the water. We still have more work to do, and we're diligently trying to undertake those areas and work towards that. But I would say overall that the water quality in the last 3 or 4 years has definitely improved, and it's really it's really based upon the leadership from the board and the staff and the operations. I guess I'll take a tiny bit of credit, I guess, because I was here. If things go wrong, I get a portion of the blame. So if things go right, I guess I can take my requisite piece of success. But it really isn't just a one-person operation. The people that operate the system really do the lion's share of the work, where the rubber meets the road. And the board has given very good direction and guidance, and so I'm very thankful for them. So the handout that you have in front of you, the first sheet obviously is a detailed breakdown of our budget. I may ask you to do some flipping back and forth, so if you could just follow along, you tell me where I'm going too fast. So the first part of the budget is is our salaries. So if you go to the second page, there's an actual breakdown of the salaries. It's detailed by position within the union contract. There's also a breakdown at the lower end that shows our scheduled weekend work and holiday work, because the treatment plant has to be manned a portion of every day. It also includes, there's also a breakdown there for unscheduled overtime for things like call-ins, for water complaints or pressure issues or things like that, customer complaints, and also for things like water main breaks. So unlike some of the other departments, the fire department doesn't schedule a fire, the police doesn't schedule crime, and Peter doesn't schedule snow. So it's difficult in those areas to budget those, and they try to do the best that they can. this is sort of our attempt at trying to do, to show that budget in advance. Does anybody have any questions on the breakdown of the salaries and the?
Sort of a generic, are these numbers based on historical? Pretty much like what you've,
Yeah, they're conservative, but yes,
Okay.
there is a basis of that. I've only been here 2.5 years.
right, so you can only have so much
Yeah, so
history.
my knowledge base is supplemented with institutional knowledge of people who've been here before.
Yeah,
But I also think too, if you maintain the system, just like anything else, if you maintain something, you have less unaccounted for.
no, that looks
or-
awesome, that's,
Or unknown things.
yeah.
So does anybody have any other questions on the salary side of things? And this is all reflected based upon the union contracts.
Right.
So the next portion is our purchase of services. What we have here is a breakdown based upon the categories that Town Hall uses, and that Mike generates for trying to find consistency amongst all the departments. We actually also have another budgeting system that I use, which is more driven around the various types of costs that you would incur for running a water system that has a water treatment plant and storage tanks and whatnot. And so those are cross-referenced into here to try to have some balance.
Did you use like you went up just a little bit, did you use like a percentage, or did you?
In a couple of areas, yes.
Okay.
I think in general, what we found is that the rate structure here right now, maybe I should take a step back from that. Basically, the overall concept of what any enterprise fund should be doing is looking at your operating costs and your capital expenses, and you're trying to figure out a balance looking forward on being able to fund those things that are going to, come due and need to be replaced, and then set the rates accordingly. And I think our rates right now, which I don't believe have been raised since, I think the last increase in the water rates was 4 years ago, and we're not anticipating a rate increase this year.
Definitely before you got here. Right?
Yeah, I think
yeah.
it was March of 2012. So we're coming up on 4 years of no rate increases. And I think at the present time, given where we're at and what we have for a capital plan, it will be necessary to have some rate increases. But what we're trying to do right now, again, is to look at what's the best bang for your buck, and then figure out those rate increases from there. I would say that given the economy that we've gone through in the last 7 or 8 years,
It's been rough.
at least in the last 4 years of not having to raise the rates is probably, obviously that's a good thing. And I don't think the board or myself in general is looking for big rate increases. I think it has more to do with having the revenue to run the place properly and to have water quality that the
Right.
town is happy with. And so that's really what drives the whole process. So in terms of looking at the various costs for the purchase of services that we have, we try to have, we try to look at trends from the past and adjust accordingly. But typically, the way our system has been run and the way our rates are set up, we're generating retained earnings pretty much consistently year by year, which is good because we have a capital plan that also includes
Right.
replacing a water tank very soon,
Saw that.
and doing some other
Yeah.
doing some other system improvements as well.
Right.
So the sensitivity that goes along with each of these line items may not be as critical for us, because I think in general our revenue tends to fall above what our expectation is or what our projection is, and our expenses tend to fall below.
That's good.
So
Always good.
I mean, as a model, you're trying to generate retained earnings because you're trying to offset that,
Right.
so that you don't have to go out and bond big
Yeah.
projects. Does anybody have any questions about the purchase of services before I go to the next one?
One small one.
Sure.
Medical and surgical supplies. Is there a mandate or something that is?
I think medical and surgical supplies, again, these are categories that I think every department uses. For us, I believe, medical and surgical supplies for us tend to be like, first aid kits. We have a variety of first aid and kind of emergency equipment in the facilities because they have, there's some chemical storage in there.
Exactly.
Maybe some laboratory gloves because we do a lot of water analysis at the lab in the plant, that kind of thing. Does that answer your question? Okay. So the next line down would be, that's the total of the salary and the purchase of services. The breakdown below that shows our indirect expenses, which includes shared town hall employees. The next line item is a reserve fund. That's something that's sort of emergency driven. That can only be expended by a vote of the board. And I think typically we, at least since I've been here, we've never had to spend anything out of that. So that basically just falls back into retained earnings.
Lou, can I interrupt?
Sure.
The indirect expenses are a lot more than shared town hall employees.
It's all healthcare, right?
Healthcare,
Yeah.
insurance,
Yeah.
pension.
Did you
We-
give that number, or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we recalculate it on a regular basis.
So staying the same for 16 and 17 is,
Yes.
okay.
Yeah, I probably didn't say that. It's indirect expenses, including shared town hall
Right.
employees. And I think that, I'm not even sure what that number is, but I think it's somewhere around $21,000 or $22,000.
Yeah, that's about right.
So-
Yeah,
yeah.
for the accountant and payroll
Right. Yeah.
and treasurer.
Yeah, you take a portion and charge it off to.
Yeah.
For folks at home, I mean, basically, we pump and treat water and sell it. People pay their water bill, the revenue comes in, it goes into the bank. But then after that, everything really is run by town hall. There's a clear division in the finances, so that when we bring bills in and we have to pay it, we still do we do vendor warrants and payroll warrants, just like every other department.
Yeah.
Those get signed by my board, and then get signed by the Board of Selectmen, and then the process financially goes through town hall, like all the other departments.
Yeah.
Yeah, the water enterprise fund is different. Is a
Then-
different type of enterprise fund than the electric
Right,
department, because
exactly.
they are totally different.
Correct. Yeah, the water department is a fully functioning department of the town. We report into town meeting the same way, and it's just our money is segregated out into a separate fund, similar to like the enterprise fund for the ambulance or
Right, yeah.
other enterprise
Yeah,
funds.
yes.
The next line down is our debt service, and that is a combination of payments for the water treatment plant, the transmission loop that brings raw water from Commissioner's Well off Bailey Lane cross-country into the treatment plant, and then sends it back cross-country to that side of town. The capital payments and the debt payment and the interest payments. And for people's edification here, I think we have 4 more years of payments on a 20-year bonding for the treatment plant.
Oh, yeah.
And then that comes off.
Oh, wow.
And then we have, that was bonded in 2000, and the transmission loop pipe job was, that was bonded in 2007, so that's got a little bit longer to go. That'll go to 226.
Is that a 20?
That's a 20, yes.
Almost halfway there.
Yeah, and so, I'll get into the capital expenses next. Actually, before I do that, I just want to say that in previous years, and for some of you that have been on the board for a while, you know this, and some who haven't may not have known it, but there was a time up until about 2 years ago when the board was appropriating money by town meeting vote from retained earnings, which is sort of free cash, into a fund known as like water system infrastructure improvements. About a year and a half ago, DOR came in and recertified all those votes and all the monies that were associated with those votes back into retained earnings. And I think the driver behind that was maybe lack of definition of what the monies were intended to be spent for. I mean, the only capital expenses we have is to improve the water system, so it really isn't too much of a stretch, but for whatever reason, the DOR thought there needed to be something, better defined, sort of project specific with a title. So what we've done is gone back through the guidance document that DOR puts out for the enterprise fund, and used one of the models that are built into that, where you put your year's worth of your capital improvement plan, you link it right into your budget for the year. And so what happens is you follow that when the town goes to town meeting and votes, that they can see clearly what you're expending money for and where it comes from. And then whatever you don't spend falls right back into retained earnings. So there's none of the idea of voting a chunk of money in for a project, not spending it all, then having to go back and vote the money back into retained earnings. It's a little bit more of a fluid, no pun intended, way of doing things. But my personal opinion, because I come from the engineering arena where that kind of accounting system with purchase orders and all that is typically what's done in a lot of places. And it gets messy because people start applying invoices to purchase orders that they don't belong.
Right.
And it becomes, it's very messy. And for an enterprise fund to have it set up this way, I think is a lot cleaner. Plus, when you go to town meeting, it's very clear. If somebody says, what are you spending on XYZ, everything is broken right out. So there's no magic to it. Everything is laid right out. I want to go through what the capital expenses are, so does anybody have any questions on the layout of this? No. So if you go to the third page, that's a document that we gave the FinCom 2 years ago, or maybe last year, I guess. We basically have a capital plan that's, whenever you generate a capital plan that's going to involve bonding projects for 20 years, in one fashion or another, you really have a 20-year capital plan. What you really have is a 20-year spreadsheet that shows how you're going to pay for the things that you put in a capital plan in the first 3 years. And so basically what we're following right now is a capital plan driven around improvements in the various categories that I show. Some of those turn out to be design elements, so there's an upfront charge associated with the design and permitting of a project. And then other costs are the bonded costs out over a year, and those numbers will tail off just like any loan. The payments get lower the deeper you are into the term, but when you do this for this kind of process, you typically show like an annualized across the board. So if you look at if you go back to the first page, what you'll see under capital expenses for FY16 is $372,000.
Right.
What you see under FY17 is $362,000.
Yep.
And if you go back to the third page, you'll see a breakdown of what's in what group. Now I can talk about what the different projects are if anybody has any interest in that.
But you're finally building that tank up on Long Hill. That's going to make a big difference.
Well, right now what we're doing is we're finalizing our hydraulic model that we have. It's a computerized representation of the system to give the correct answer as to where the best place to relocate a tank is. We have one of the two tanks on Baldpate Hill behind the hospital has some structural deficiencies that could be fixed, but in terms of the life cycle cost and the, again, trying to get the most bang for your buck, repairing a tank in the same location, first of all, it doesn't change the hydraulics of the system, and we do need to have some improvements relative to that. So even if we were to replace the tank in the same location, or if we were to rehabilitate the tank in the same location, you still have to look at what the benefits are to the system overall and what the costs are. It's kind of like deciding to fix a vehicle versus trade it in and start with a new one.
Yeah.
So we're going through that analysis right now. I don't think it's any big secret that the town owns a piece of land on the other side of town, behind the apartments, and they have for a long time. There's a 12-inch pipeline loop that's built there, basically ready for a tank. But the final decision on putting one there has not yet been made, because the hydraulic model really still has to answer those questions.
Is that a decision that just the water department makes?
Yes.
Excellent.
Yes, the Board of the Water Commissioners would be the one to make that decision, yes.
What is AECOM estimate? What is that acronym for?
AECOM is AECOM. That's an engineering firm that
Okay.
was used to prepare. They prepared a water plan, and within that plan, they gave us some cost estimates.
This looks great.
Yeah.
Is there any reason why we can't do this with other departments? I mean, this thing kind of makes sense for some of the stuff they're talking about in
Yeah,
the future.
I think we usually get a CIP that has, it doesn't look like this. This is displayed really well.
This
But
is
it doesn't look
really-
like this, but we know what the capital is for each year.
We've even done this for
But we
CIP
haven't-
since I was on it.
Yeah.
I mean, I appreciate the compliment, if there's a compliment in there, but
It is. This is great.
There was.
But
no,
I-
this is definitely. It's
I
very
think I'm-
clear.
Volunteer for the CIP committee? You can sit with me there.
I'll jump in. I'll send you the spreadsheet. How's that? No, I mean, I think in general, we're fortunate because it's an enterprise fund, and that's really what the goal of an enterprise fund is
Right.
supposed to be, is to keep the monies dedicated for the
Right.
purpose it's
Right.
intended.
Yeah.
I think what my job is to make it clear, both to my board and to the folks at home that pay the bills, how we generate our revenue and what we spend it on, and what's needed. And I mean, there's, one of the projects in here is to replace a motor at one of the wells. It was,
Yeah.
the motors was put in 1964, like 2 years before I was born. And it's been rebuilt, I think, 6 times. So the machine shop told us in 2014, don't ask us to rebuild this motor anymore. Which means we have to replace the motor this year.
My only question is, and it's purely curiosity.
Sure.
Are there any expenditures that start like in 19 that aren't, that if we had more columns, are there any out there that?
Well, this goes to sort of the rate analysis, and I think, when you start, if you look at other communities, and this kind of makes me a little crazy sometimes when people try to compare one community to another, because
It's hard.
every community has different challenges, every community has different costs, every community has different thresholds for what they expect for service. If the neighboring community wanted 12 kids in every classroom, well, their taxes would be whatever, twice as high or something like,
Yeah.
So the threshold for what we have is, what should the rates be? What's a reasonable rate for water? What is the perception of the people in town about the quality of the water? What is the age and the structural integrity of the infrastructure? And you have to balance all these things out. I moved here in 1995, and the water was not particularly great. And that's because there was a lot of iron and manganese and no treatment plant. Well, in 2000, we built a treatment plant, and 70% of the people in town suddenly had water that didn't have iron in it all the time. So, did we need to build a treatment plant? The people then said yes. Now we have folks in town who still think the water quality isn't quite as good. Many of those folks called DEP about 3 or 4 years ago, and we had an ACO, not the ACO that you've talked about before. Ours is called Administrative Consent Order. where we had to go through a detailed process of reevaluating the water system and making improvements at the treatment plant. And so those are the things that drive, that drive what we have to do. The question is after you make DEP happy, which we did because we satisfied the consent order that they gave us, where is the end point? If the end point is everybody wants, the water quality to be even better than it is now, and there are many people that are still saying that, well, that's what we're going to continue to strive for. If there was a big outcry in town that said the water quality is fine, we don't want the rates to go up ever again. Well, I mean, that's, now you just have to look at the structural integrity of the system because you're not spending money on the water quality side. But right now, we're trying to balance all those areas because we have needs in all those areas. The question really is how do you balance those things and decide what the rate should be? So I'll circle back to what your question was. And your question is what's the number there? I think what we need to do is to have a capital expense of a certain amount of money every year.
Yeah.
And work towards what are the things that you can get for that. Right now that number looks like somewhere between $350,000 and $400,000 a year. I'd like to see it be a little bit higher, but it's not just what I want to do, it's what is driven by a needs analysis. And then that's, those are some of the things that we're still trying to refine now.
This is great. More info than I ever thought I knew. Didn't know.
Any other questions? We're good, thank you very much.
This looks great.
Okay. You don't want to talk about the other pages?
About what?
Yeah, there's a few more pages and I'll just go.
Oh, if you want.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
Close his computer this time.
The next two pages basically is a breakdown. That's
Yeah.
It's known as the A2 form. And that's basically what Mary, the town accountant, puts together. I kind of jumped ahead and tried to do it as well, because that's how her and I really communicate, to show how the budget fits into the Munis system.
Right.
I think it would be worthwhile for the people at home, though, to go through the goals, Jim.
Okay,
And,
sure,
and the
yeah.
accomplishments.
Okay. So, a lot of these goals, quite honestly, are goals that we are sort of ongoing all the time. So some of them may seem repetitive after a while, but the first one is to continue to improve the water treatment plant operations, to improve the water quality. So that's something that we're constantly doing. We have a fixed asset there, and it's very well maintained. It runs well, but it takes a lot of TLC, and that's what the staff does. But we are tinkering with things from time to time to try to make improvements. We recently actually put in an electrically assisted valve for the backwash system of which actually minimized hydraulic surges and prevented any dirty water from moving forward in the system during the backwash. That isn't something we went out and designed. We had some recommendations and we just implemented it. The guys did most of the work themselves. The next thing is to update our hydraulic model and use that to try to identify improvements in the system. And it's something we're working on right now. We're close to being done with that. We want to work on designing a water storage tank. The tank that needs to be replaced was built in 1960. It doesn't mean it needs to be torn down and built tomorrow, but we want to have a design on the shelf and ready to go, so that as soon as we have an indication that its failure is imminent or within a year or two, that it's ready to go. And we already have evidence that it has some repairs that need to be done structurally, and we want to be ready to go. We want to continue to use and improve our unidirectional flushing methodology that we use. We try to take 2 shots at it every year to evacuate all the water in the system and replace it with new water and clean out the lines in the same process. But we don't want to move the water. Unfortunately, when there's a fire, wherever the fire happens to be, all the water's going that way. So that's that happens to be unidirectional that day, wherever the fire is. We want unidirectional to mean start from the treatment plant and work to the extremities of the system in every direction. But you have to close and open valves and kind of direct everything the right way. So we're constantly refining that process. We want to continue to accelerate water meter reading conversion from manual to radio. So anybody who's listening to this, in the next year or two, you're probably going to get a phone call or something in your mail that says, we'd like to schedule an appointment to replace your water meter.
How many do you think are left? Percentage-wise of the town, or?
We have 2,800 water meters in town. About 1,600 of them are radioed, and about 1,200 of them are not.
Wow.
And it's not an easy process. I mean, we could put a contract out and have somebody come in at prevailing wage, which would be,
Probably a lot of money.
yeah, double what it costs. But what we just do it on our own. There's no standing around at the water treatment plant or at the
Yeah.
or the staff, because if we're not actively doing something,
You're doing those.
you immediately go, because you can pick it up and put it down all the time. So it actually works out well. Between that and hydrant painting, there's always going to be something to do that's that's segmentable. So it's a process that we want to continue, because that also frees up manpower, and that's one of the
To go in and read.
yeah, we're not going to lay somebody off because the radios are all taking the place of a meter reader. It's going to free us up to do things that can't be done with technology, like painting and exercising hydrants for fire protection.
Right.
We want to continue to improve the business information systems and our customer service. We want people to be happy with the quality of the water, and we want people to be happy with dealing with us and their interactions. We also want to continue upgrading our fleet. I don't know, I may have said this before, but one of the first things I did when I took over the water department is I was tasked with deciding whether or not to replace a transmission in a vehicle that needed a transmission or it couldn't work anymore, and we were down a vehicle. So the decision was, yeah, of course. It was $2,800 to replace the transmission in a vehicle, and it was a third one. And if you do a cost analysis of what it costs to own a vehicle, we could have, that's the same cost as getting a new vehicle, especially if you don't put a lot of miles on them and you rotate them in before you start having to do all kinds of repairs. So, as an example of the difference between that, one of our trucks is about $26,000. That truck's a year and a half old right now, and it has 11,000 miles on it. So at auction, it's probably going to get back, say, 15,000. So it might be $11,000 to own that vehicle for 6 years, except for putting gas and changing the oil.
Yeah.
So that's $2,000 a year to drive a brand new vehicle with four-wheel drive, as opposed to putting a transmission in a vehicle that didn't have four-wheel drive, that was basically ready, that could have just as easily been salvaged that day. So that's kind of the approach that we're taking.
Have you, because I always go to the police.
Me too.
Have you started instituting any fleet maintenance or anything like? I mean, his is.
I mean, our fleet maintenance is us and B&B right now, just for oil changes and things like that. But it's.
But you're tracking the age and.
Yes, we are. I mean, we're still in the process of replacing vehicles that.
Right.
We probably should have replaced a while ago.
Yeah.
So our
Playing
fleet
catch
maintenance
up.
right now is really more like fleet replacement.
Yeah.
When we get to that same step. By the way, one of the vehicles that the police department gave the fire department, they first gave the water department for 6 years, and we drove it around, and then we gave it to the fire department to light on fire. So the water department's used to using vehicles that are very substandard, but we're trying to eliminate that. And then the last thing would be to investigate future water sources, so that we have as much redundancy in the system as we can. Those are our goals. I guess our accomplishments, a few of the key ones, we upgraded the filter drain valves at the treatment plant. That's what I was just talking about. We upgraded flow meters at our treatment plant as well, and also at all the wells. We continue to perform our unidirectional flushing program. And again, we've accelerated reading the water meters and converting to radio read for those. We've had some improvement in our business systems. One of the things we did was we went to Invoice Cloud, so that there's an online payment system now that wasn't there before. And then the last thing on that list is we've improved some of our controls and some of our SCADA system to help improve running the treatment plant.
That's awesome.
If anybody has any questions, I'll take them. And our office is open all the time, so if any board has questions, I'm in the office all the time.
If somebody has a meter that needs to be read, can they actually call you? I don't, but I think I probably know a few in town that
Need to be read or need to be replaced?
need to be replaced. Like, can they be put on a list to do it instead of?
Yeah, they certainly can. We're actually getting ready to start reading meters again, so the window for replacing meters is about to end.
Yeah.
That will open back up somewhere in April, and then we'll
Yeah,
go
but I
into
mean, if they
flushing.
called and said, when you're around, can you?
The office is going to kill me if 1,000 people call
Oh, I
tomorrow
don't think
on
so,
Monday
but
morning,
yeah.
so
I don't know that many that have it. But
if folks
I
need
know
their
a
water
few
meter
that
replaced,
might.
please call us.
Yeah.
Or we'll call you.
Sometimes it's easier to schedule your own than it is.
Yes.
I'm coming. You know.
Okay, I guess.
Thank you.
This is it.
Nice work.
Thank you.
Wow.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. That's went really well.
Except for one thing.
Well, we're not in balance at all, but
Yeah, we're not-
Well,
yeah,
no,
but
no.
we got a lot of
We got two.
information.
So, well, first of all, when are we gonna do you? We're gonna do you and Jay
Planning.
and planning some
Planning.
other day. Okay. So second of all, we gotta sort of think about where we are. And talking with Mike, the approach we're taking at the moment is that we think that with a variety of things, a lot of which we've talked about today, that we can get about $100,000. We're at about 360, 370 underwater right now, isn't it? Something like that.
That's it.
Yeah, that's what I had. I had 363, and you
Yeah,
had
you made some
370.
adjustments
school?
after,
I made the school
after the
adjustments.
school. I don't have those.
Okay, I made the school adjustments, and that put us at 363. And we talked about this. It looks like we can get another 100 out by some of the things we talked about, taking Jan McGrain's money for this 1 year out of her budget and pay for it. You know, things like that. I don't remember exactly what
Well,
they all
the,
were.
the treasurer's budget, we're gonna save $29,000
Right.
out of that. Actually,
I was gonna say, is there even
Against-
29 in there to take?
yeah, oh yeah, there, we're taking away a full-time position, making it part-time.
Wow.
The reason why we can do that, we're gonna go to a lockbox system for the collection of payments. When you mail in your tax payments, they'll go to directly to the bank. They'll process them and then give us, and that's essentially what that one clerk does 100% of her time.
Yeah, I gotta pay mine this week.
Yeah, so,
My excise bills.
by going from,
Didn't do this week.
you know, it's a $32,000 a year position down to $14,000 a year position.
Did that person leave, or are we?
No, we had to lay the person off. Actually, I instituted that change this week.
Yeah.
So we'll see some savings this year.
Yeah.
And those 29,000
savings.
What does the
also
lockbox cost?
$3,900.
Year. Mention
Wow.
it. Yeah.
And then an extra $500 for envelopes. And the additional savings are $16,000 in health insurance benefits and about $1,200 in pension expenses. So it nets out $29,000. So we're a third of the way to the 100 grand just with the treasurer's office.
What about unemployment?
So, well,
costs?
if you take the treasurer's office and then the 21, well, that's not 21. It's about 17 or 18 from Jan. There were two things in there that we could get. One of them was...
Janet, hers was more than seven, her,
No, but it was 21, but some of it had to stay there for...
oh, yeah, that's right, because it's 2/3. We
Right,
can take.
right. We can
can't
take
one
some
third.
of it. It was another... Anyway, we're almost at 50 with that.
55,
And then if we take
55 out of, 5,500 out of
Board of Health.
Board of Health,
Right.
and then 20
From Steve, now you're at 75. So
Yeah.
we're pretty confident that we can squirrel $100,000.
Are there gonna need to be any unemployment costs? Is unemployment gonna need to go up?
I'm sure there will be for that, but we have money in unemployment. I mean,
Yeah,
that's another possibility.
Unemployment, is,
Oh, I'm talking,
Depe-
but I'm talking
For
fiscal
the person
17.
you laid off, we're gonna have to
Right.
pay unemployment.
yes.
Yeah. Now,
And-
have we been using, I know that.
No, it's
we
been
all-
under budget,
It's under budget right now.
yeah. Well, under.
Well under budget, I would think.
Yeah, we haven't had, all the, since, what used to kill us was the, extensions.
Yes.
We were paying for 99 weeks.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, and that's
That
gone
stopped,
away.
right?
Yes.
That stopped.
Yeah, that was.
Oh, okay, so we haven't
Yeah.
had that.
So, when they were raving that you could get
So,
unemployment
you
extensions,
know,
you were
that's,
paying for it.
that's another possibility, I
So
suppose,
it was
is some of that.
Get it one way or another. We were paying.
But anyway, just on a very high level, $100,000. I happened to be in a meeting with Carol the other day, yesterday, about Camp Dennison. And I asked her for $150,000 in addition to what she gave us the other day. And she didn't fall off the chair, so I'm assuming there's...
She knew it was coming.
Yeah.
All right, well, that's not falling off the chair is a good thing.
And then that leads us, and this is what I think we should do, and I know I've talked to Sandy about this, that we put in about $100,000 worth of one-time money into the budget, something that we've never done before, that
free
we
cash?
never thought, that we never thought was a great idea, but
always
I think
said
it's the
no.
only way we're gonna get through this. We wanna minimize that to the extent we can, but that's kind of
Is
what
there
I...
any, can we find 100,000 in one time?
Well, if we can, I don't know. I think, now it's scour the budget time to see, what we can move
'Cause we-
around and...
I've always been against,
Oh.
and we all have.
And we all have.
But we have to, I still think we have to look at that as a contingency.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Well, absolutely.
Oh,
But if we
absolutely.
could find one-time things,
And we may as well say the words.
I'm not saying it.
Oh, no, not
I'm
this
not-
year, I think. Not this year.
We have to look at it though, because, I
No.
mean, we talked
Okay.
about adding a policeman, we talked about, I mean, that's,
My worry about that is a couple things. First of all, we have to do Elm Street. And
Yeah.
that's gonna be a push, I think, getting Elm Street done. And the worst thing you could do is to try to get a small override.
oh, you're talking about, yeah, I understand.
And to get a small override, and then as we look out, if we get this 5 and 10-year projection, and we're able to do a plan and go out there with a plan, I think you have a much better chance next year or the year after to present people, okay, this is what we have to do.
Are we expecting a
So
reduction in
doing
debt
it this
service
year, I think
anytime
is
soon?
counterproductive to that.
There's, as Jim stated, it's about a $60,000, after, there's $60,000 worth of payments that will fall off in FY17, so they'll be clear for
FY18.
FY18.
Do we get that allocated?
I'm sorry, I wasn't listening, I was fading.
No, we don't.
No.
No, we don't, so.
No.
No,
Okay.
it's not in there even right now, right?
Right, it would be for FY18.
Right.
Oh, FY18.
We
But
have
that's
to
a-
pay them in 17.
Right.
This year.
Okay.
If you could take a question?
Sure.
Just from speaking with the public and trying to answer questions as we all have to do as town employees. With regard to the Elm Street project, I've lost, it's one of the few projects I've lost track in town. And how did the Elm Street project come about in utilizing that amount of money for that particular street? I work very closely with,
Yes, I know.
with Peter.
Right.
And, you know, working on dangerous intersections and other sidewalks in Georgetown where people are in peril and so forth. How does Elm Street, I mean, it did fare out, I'm not a pavement guy, I defer to him, but with all the truck traffic, the school is now built.
That was one of the reasons.
There are some sections of Elm Street, though, that are pretty smooth in comparison to some of our other roads in town, because my cruisers take a beating in some of our areas. Where are we with Elm Street? And it's up here and we're in crisis, so why hasn't Elm Street been moved down?
That's certainly a possibility.
Is it $1 million project?
No, it's what, 2.7?
1.8.
1.8. I thought it was over 2.
Well,
With the
that was a almost three
Yeah, it was a while
3
ago.
years ago estimate. So, you know, we don't.
Okay.
Is there any way to take a second look at it and maybe take sections of Elm Street that are in
I
peril?
wouldn't have the
I
slightest
don't have a
problem
clue. It's just
taking a
pop-up
second look at
question,
anything.
I don't know.
I do know that and again, I don't have the spreadsheet in front of me, but the last payment on the present bond of the high school, of the the late 90s renovations is dropping off in 18?
Yes.
It's dropping off in 18.
Is that the 60,000 you're talking
No,
about?
No.
200.
This is 240 something thousand.
$250,000. It's debt excluded.
That's right.
It
but
won't give us a buffer.
No.
No,
it won't.
On
It
the.
won't. That's right.
So from a governance perspective, have we committed to Elm Street, the project, so we shouldn't talk about it, or how does that work?
I think
Just a
people were
question.
promised it,
I always hear Elm Street.
Yeah, I
I
know,
don't have
that's
my
true.
handles around it.
Go ahead.
Can I speak to it? Unfortunately, yeah, the Board of Selectmen spent, I think, close to $200,000 to do a study. Am I right on that
The
estimate,
selectmen
Peter?
didn't. The highway department spent money for a plan. And we used chapter 90 for that.
You used,
I need to talk about that for you.
okay, and the town did agree for the Board of Selectmen to be okay to bond Elm Street, but that was within budget, and we don't have the money in budget to bond it.
When it finished, yeah.
So it's a done deal then, basically, if you look at the governance side of fixing a road. I mean, I purport to know a lot, but I know nothing about this stuff.
What, was it around 200 grand for that
No.
study?
No.
So could we not shelf the plan if we're in
No,
crisis and revisit it?
The design's done. It's going to permitting now. And then the next step would be going out to bid.
Thank you, sir.
The biggest change, though, since we approved it at town meeting, got bonding authority for $1.8 million. It was not debt excluded, so at the time, I estimated a 10-year road bond would cost about $300,000 a year.
Right.
And that would come directly out of the tax levy, which means there'd be $300,000 less for school and other departments. So we'd take a big haircut there, scalping, actually. Because we only get $600,000 from the 2.5% increase every year.
Well, plus new growth, right?
Which is 100,000.
Right.
So what has changed between then and now, the law has changed where you can do road bonds for up to 20 years. So it would cut the debt service, the annual debt service, almost in half to about $170,000. But that's still $170,000 that the departments will not have.
So I guess the long and the short is, if we looked at the powers to be with a project of this magnitude, and I know we have a very long linear government setup, are we in favor of Elm Street? Are we against it, or are we doing it?
I think it falls into the third category myself. We did doing it. But I mean, certainly the selectmen can revisit it, I would think. I mean, it isn't us. I mean, we're looking for ways to fund it. But if the selectmen decide, in fact, the fact that it's in 18, you gotta wonder if we shouldn't wait a year. and see if it could be part of a, you know, a capital override.
It was meant to be tied in, I think, with the new school. Many people were concerned about the increase of traffic with the new school.
To me, there were promises made that, endure this and we're gonna fix the street.
Right.
There's no question about that.
How does it fit on Peter's list? I mean, I didn't think it was high on your street list.
It wasn't, it wasn't to be done in the next 3 or 4 years for my pavement maintenance program. So, but there is a safety factor with the sidewalks.
In just some areas though,
Yeah.
that we could look at. I just,
I mean,
I'm not anti-Elm Street, I drive it every day, we're down to bare bones and I like Mike's statement, we're starting to scalp now, so that's not an attractive word.
Yeah, I mean, there's no way that we could take Elm Street out of our present budget. We can't do it. It's just not possible.
$236,000 for the plan.
Where I am. The only way we would do it would be with an override right now.
The debt exclusion.
A debt exclusion, that's right.
I have a question. I have reservations about free cash to balance the budget.
Oh, well, we all do. I mean, it's.
And I
Okay,
think
go ahead.
we need to discuss the pros and cons of doing it. Obviously, we know what the con is.
Yeah.
If we don't do it, we'll have to find it somewhere else.
Right.
But what's the danger, in your opinion?
Oh, the danger is always that you're spending money that doesn't recur again next year.
Right.
So you start the year with whatever that is, you're in the hole. You're absolutely,
And that could be, there could be a knock-on effect every year, because it's every year we're like this.
Yeah, that's true. But, at some point, the way I'm approaching it is that we're going to do a long-term plan.
So we get through this year as a Band-Aid, and then...
Yes, and then we're gonna look at all of it and, make whatever revenue adjustments we have to make after that. That's where I'm coming from, yes.
Well, I think it makes sense. I'm just concerned about...
We've never done this.
That's
We
my
have
concern.
never, ever put that much.
What could
No.
happen? What's the worst case scenario that could happen?
Is that we get to next year, we have a plan, and the plan includes doing an override, and the override fails. And then, but then what you do is you make the cuts next year rather than this year.
So we're kicking the can down the street.
Well, yeah, but it's kicking the can with a plan. I guess is
As
the
opposed
best
to
I can do
kicking
for
it.
you.
Well, the reason I want to bring
No,
that
no,
up
it's a good
is
point.
that people that may be watching would like
absolutely.
It's not unusual, I'd say, I can't say for certain that a majority of towns do it, but many towns balance their budget with free cash. It's
scary.
And it's something you really you gotta think
but
twice about
even
doing
the
it.
well-managed towns like the Wellesleys and the Westons
They
and
have
all
to do
the
it sometimes.
all the W towns. No, they do it every year.
Oh, they do?
They do it every year because they're free cash.
Yeah.
Well, see, they don't budget as tightly as we do.
Yeah,
They have
yeah.
millions of dollars every
Oh,
year
okay,
in
yeah.
free cash.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's planned that way.
Yeah, we don't want to do that.
We budget
you
so
know,
tight.
We're very frugal.
Yeah.
Very, yeah.
Well, the town is well run. The departments are well run.
They are.
I mean, I think that's pretty self-evident. But the concern that I have is that, it's like running a car without oil. You can only run it so far and then it breaks down. I see the police department, I see other departments where every year we ask them to do more and more with less and less. And that's got to end at some point.
Yeah.
And that's what my concern is.
And the problem is, I don't think that we can address it this year. And again,
Right.
this is my feeling, because we don't have a plan. And hopefully, what Mike is talking to somebody. Yeah. We're going to get a consultant in here. We're going to do a plan and take into account what our
Probably have
development
free
projects.
cash to pay for that.
We're going to have free cash to pay for that. But that's all right. I mean, again, the whole idea is to do a plan and to put all that stuff in it. I mean, we do sort of live too much year to year. And having a plan with all of the needs that people have.
We have to do that because we're presented with these budgets on a year-to-year basis.
No, I know, but up to now, I think our long-range planning has been really confined almost to spreadsheet exercises. You know, we need something more than that.
Well, not to cast aspersions, but for example, the zoning board of appeal. Yeah, we'll look at it. You know, I didn't mean to get frustrated with them.
But you did.
I did, and I apologize for that. But, you know, when you're talking about, on the one hand, somebody looking for more money, on the other hand, the people say, well, we'll take a look at it.
Well, because he can't promise them things, you know. I think we gotta put that, we're gonna factor that into what we're doing. Anyway, that's where we are.
That's the story, yeah.
That's the story.
That's the story, and he's sticking to it.
Yeah, yeah. So now the next question is on our next meeting. How do we want to proceed from here, Mike? You know, do we?
Well, I
You and
think
I go
orig-
off and look at the budget? Do
Well, we
does
have
the
to get
committee wanna-
our budget spreadsheets synchronized.
Yeah, you and I have to do that.
Yeah.
And let's put in there what we know.
We don't have a school yet, right? A school
We
meeting?
said that we would meet with them on the 9th.
We're gonna switch the warrant date.
Oh, that's right.
We have nothing next week.
We have nothing on the 2nd.
Is the warrant closed?
Yes.
You guys want, you know, I can.
It's basically, well, it's closed for citizen petitions.
Oh, so meeting next week wouldn't do us much good. You know, the warrant isn't finished enough for us to start going
For
through the warrant.
warrants, I'd wait.
Okay, so our next meeting would be the 9th.
Yeah.
We'll meet with the schools, and then after that, we'll start doing the warrant. But at some point, we do have to sit down and do, you know, the budget.
Chairman, is that 7 PM here at Town Hall? Your meeting on the 9th?
Yes.
Thank you.
I don't know if it's this room or not. I haven't booked it.
Oh.
Right now, it's second
The
floor.
Second floor, does it? Oh,
That's
so
what
it's
it
already
says.
been booked. Okay. Second floor.
I'm assuming all of these have already been booked.
Yes.
Oh, they have been
If
booked.
it
I
says-
haven't done
If it has a
the,
location, it's booked.
the agenda. I gotta put the agendas out there yet.
Right.
Okay, so the 9th is our next meeting. 7 o'clock, second floor.
Will you have someone there to take where it's on the second floor? I mean, that's a school, that's rather.
I will try to. When's the planning board? Oh,
It's the 9th.
yeah. See, no. The answer is no. Andrea does the planning board.
Oh, no, he means video. We can have a stationary video
we can?
camera.
Right, you get
Yeah.
Charlie.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Mike, you can make sure that happens, Mike.
Yeah.
Yeah, it may not be live, but at least you'll get something that can go
Yeah.
out and just-
Well, this isn't
Got to go
live.
to
I don't
school.
think this is live, is it?
Yes, it is.
Oh, it is.
I think too, Mr. Chairman, I watched that meeting. It was heavily attended, and the schools have announced to have people come to that meeting, and if you're on the second floor, you may be challenged with space. I don't know if you watched the meeting on Thursday, but it's, you know, nothing worse than not having chairs and space and
Yeah.
all that before you even start trying to do your business, so just a thought.
I'll talk with Cal to see what she thinks is gonna happen. I mean, it's there's not much we can do about it. I don't like it either.
Be nice to have pockets that were infinitely deep.
True. Okay, I guess for now that's it. We're gonna meet on the 9th.
Can you email
Would you
us
like-
with a revised?
Yes, I will
after
get with
you guys
Mike and we'll
do
try to
what you're gonna do?
synchronize, do what we already talked about,
Yeah.
and
That would be great.
we'll send it out to you electronically. How's that? Okay. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.